for the Wednesday, May 27th meeting of the Barnstable County Commissioners. We expect Commissioner Bergstrom to join us shortly, but in the interest of time, since we have such a very busy agenda, I'm going to declare a quorum and call this meeting to order. This meeting of the Barnstable County Board of Regional Commissioners is going to be conducted in accordance with applicable laws. When public participation is required by law or allowed by the board chairpersons wishing to participate may do so by accessing the Zoom link on the posted meeting agenda on our website or via in-person attendance. Members of the public may view the meeting live on the YouTube channel for Barnstable County or on the Barnstable County website. It's great to look out in this audience and see this crowd. I'm thrilled that we're here at Yarmouth Town Hall. This is a historic first. This is the first time we can recall in at least our recorded history of the Barnstable County Commissioners holding a meeting here at Yarmouth Town Hall. So this is a first. We're doing these meetings because we really want to, as a board and as a county, develop a closer relationship between our individual municipalities. Much of what we do is to provide services to the towns, to empower the towns, to help the towns address the myriad issues that our local communities have to wrestle with. And we've put together an agenda that I think highlights some of the things that we've been working on together. We start the meeting today with a fairly robust conversation with Yarmouth Town officials on the things that we're collaborating on. And I'm looking forward to today's discussion. So having said all that, I'd like you to join our board in a pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like you all to join us in a brief moment of silence to reflect on the bravery and the sacrifices of all those who have put their lives on the line in service to our country, protecting our safety, our freedom, and our democracy. Thank you. Our first order of business for today is public comment. And for those of you who don't have an agenda and would like an agenda, there are, I think, several floating around. There may be on the table. Okay. Do we have anybody who would like to address the Board of Commissioners? Mr. Contos, please take the podium.
Working?
Yep.
Okay.
Sliding.
Good morning and thank you. I ask that you indulge me 2 or 3 minutes. I think it goes without saying that the environment, encompassing the landscape, the seascape, the sand dunes, salty air, lobster stew, and quaint little villages, if you will, are all central to the identity of Cape Cod, to living here, to the tourist industry here. Matters of land, sea, air, and water pollution bear special attention here. Just take a drive, or more often lately, a detour along Route 28 as an example. Those types of pollution aren't the only ones of concern, however. Scientific and medical research have also relatively recently been giving increased scrutiny to noise pollution, in a sense, a pollution of the soundscape, for the adverse effects not only on quality of life, but on physical and mental health as well. Enough so that the American Public Health Association has deemed noise pollution the new second-hand smoke. You may recall that the county had a successful tobacco control program to address that public health issue some years back. Noise is unwanted and/or harmful sound, first recognized as a public health hazard in 1968. The Noise Control Act of 1972 declared that it is the policy of the United States to promote an environment for all Americans free from noise that jeopardizes their health or welfare. But the promise of that legislation remains unfulfilled more than 50 years later, nationwide and here on Cape Cod. Though the law remains on the books, the gutting of its funding for enforcement and further policy development has meant it doesn't do much good on the streets, however. The environment is getting noisier and human exposure to harmful noise levels is widespread. Major sources include transportation, commercial and military aircraft, noisy recreational vehicles, industrial machinery, recreational and leisure activities, outdoor power equipment, consumer products, and even wind turbines, as if that isn't enough. It was just 3 years ago that Falmouth dismantled its Wind 1 and Wind 2 renewable energy turbines for the noise effects on those living nearby. Loud noise causes hearing loss and tinnitus and can contribute to non-auditory health problems. Chronic noise, even at low levels, can cause annoyance, sleep disruption, and stress that contribute to cardiovascular disease, cerebrovascular disease, metabolic disturbances, and more. This is what the scientific and medical literature is finding and reporting on. Nor should the quality of life dimension be dismissed. When the expectation of hearing the birds chirp, of listening to nature's other songs as you try to enjoy your coffee on a Sunday morning is overridden by the oral graffiti of the roar and rumbling of a motorcycle, often over a mile away. The nature of the problem is such that it demands a regional approach. No town by itself has the resources to develop the knowledge base and to keep pace with the latest scientific and medical findings and legal developments with which to develop sound policies. Unlike more traditional public health undertakings, a principal treatment in addressing noise isn't with a vaccine, but through law enforcement. But enforcement of the law can fail if the laws are based on weak evidence or rationale and are easily challengeable in courts, where the judges themselves know no better than the average Joe on the street about the effects of noise on human health. So I am asking you to put noise pollution on a par with water pollution and air pollution and land pollution. Indeed, you've done it before with smoking. You're doing it presently with PFAS chemicals. Yarmouth is doing it with plastics. As a community-wide public health matter, engaging the county health department as a prime resource, but other county agencies as well, so as to develop the scientific basis for meaningful evidence-based policy and for effective uniform enforcement throughout the Cape, in demonstration of an integrated, coordinated regional approach to address the matter when application for fundings to address noise pollution here on the Cape are made to state and federal agencies. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Harris, thank you. Anybody else interested in speaking? Yes, sir. Please state your name and where you're from.
How you folks doing? Eric Schwab from Hyannis. As many of you may know, we're having an issue with a shelter that is being moved to the West Hyannis part of town. It's currently owned by the Housing Assistance Corp. This body allocated over $3 million to facilitate that move without any effort being made to speak to the neighbors or ask anyone how we feel about it. The concern now is that $3 million was spent and not one additional bed was created for the homeless, not one. And I understand that there's been a considerable amount of documentation sent your way, and we have not heard from you. We have not heard a response. Would like to know if you're planning on clawing back that $3 million and giving that money to organizations that are capable of producing beds for the homeless. The Housing Assistance Corp has failed to do so, and we would like you to intercede. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public How about online? Do we have anybody online seeking recognition? Robin, see anybody? We have a number of people here online, which is nice, but we do not have anybody raising a hand. Okay, so we're going to move on.
Just,
Commissioner Bergstrom.
yeah, I'd just like to apologize for being late. I was coming from Hyannis and I ran into the mother of all detours. So you have a beautiful town and I saw quite a bit of it before I got back on 28.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can take that up with Mr. Colby when his turn comes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. The first item on our agenda today is a Town of Yarmouth update and discussion with our town manager, any of the members of the select board, and some of the other town officials. And I'm going to ask Bob to kick things off and, at least in the beginning, sort of acknowledge who was here from the town. Thanks, Bob.
Thank you very much, Mr. Forrest. Welcome, Barnstable County Commissioners and managers. It's great to have you here this morning. Also, I want to thank all of our town department heads, division heads. What a great outpouring. Here's a few folks I would like to recognize, and we can start with our communications team, Paul Chaffee, Lori Sullivan, Marcel Longo, and the man behind the controls, Liam Sullivan, for getting us up and running here. Very helpful. Also, I want to recognize Select Board member Liz Argo, sitting at the front here. So, and we have so many department heads, division heads. I'll try to mention everyone. Just give us a quick wave. We'll see who I miss. Our Assistant Town Administrator, Amy Frigiletti, is with us this morning. Community Development Director, immediately to my right, Megan Eldridge. Our Building Commissioner is hiding in the back, Mark Grills, who also in our building department, that encompasses the health department as well. Finance Director Jennifer Mullen is with us this morning. Our DPW Director to my left, Jeff Colby. Our Senior Services Director Diane Kane immediately to my left. I know we have Dave Condon, our DNR Director, is with us this morning. Kathy Williams, Town Planner. Wastewater Superintendent Laurie Rosala is with us this morning. Our Conservation Administrator Brittany DiRienzo is in the room, and also our Fire Chief and Emergency Management Specialist Enrique Arasque here this morning. And I'm trying to think if there's anyone of our town departments and staff I've missed, give us a wave, but thank you very much, and we're all happy to be here.
This is great. In the interest of full disclosure, I have the great fortune of also being a selectman in Yarmouth. And I can attest to the fact that the town is well served by its department heads and all of the key town officials that are here today, as well as staff. It's one of the things I'm very proud of, and that is the having the position of representing the town on the select board. And to also, as a county commissioner, play a role in making sure that the county is doing everything it can to meet not just the needs of all Cape Codders, but also the unique needs here in the town of Yarmouth. So it's great. It's great to see everybody here, and thank you, Bob. This part of the Liz.
Hi, Liz Argo, another member of the Select Board in Yarmouth. And I just want to briefly note the connection between the county commissioners and the county, and we have the Cape Cod Commission here today. And I want to say thank you, because it's very unique what we have here on the Cape in terms of the county commissioners. It's a rarity. It doesn't exist in other counties. And I want to also give a shout out to Bob Rittenauer. I ran and was elected because I very much believe, I grew up here, born on Cape Cod, that we are in a crisis almost. And that is shared by the Cape Cod Commissioners and the Cape Cod Commission. And in Yarmouth, we are stepping up to confront the issues. The sewering is just one example. We did lose our effort to get a library through a state grant, but we are going to reconstitute that committee and keep at that, because Yarmouth should have a library. And so I just wanted to say thank you. It's such an honor, as somebody who was raised on Cape Cod, to be in a position to make the difference and work towards a very healthy future for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. Bob, let's talk a little bit about some of the key challenges that Yarmouth has been addressing. I know there's some things that you'd like to raise and others would like to raise. I want to point out that we did identify a couple of items that are very obvious, and we put them actually on the agenda so that we can get a report from department heads. For example, we have Mary Vilbon on the agenda to give us an update on the visitor center. The Shine program is something that we're very proud of in Barnstable County, but it also is a very present program and initiative here in the town of Yarmouth. So we've actually put some of these items. There's a Bass River project, a very unique project that might help us find other creative uses for our dredging program. So we actually, on some of these items, put them on the general business agenda for a more detailed discussion. So I would suggest that any comments regarding those initiatives, we wait until we bring them up. And we start off with maybe some other initiatives that are going on that we haven't highlighted on the agenda. So,
Well, first of all, if you're in Yarmouth, I think, you know, the key thing that leads all of our discussions and the select board, I know working with you and Liz has established as the number one priority for our community, the environmental issues and specifically water quality. Not only water quality in our coastal embayments is a massive concern, but, you know, the protection of our public water supplies. You know, we have you know, nearly 30 public water supply wells all around the community that serve water, and almost every issue gets back to the water quality, and the challenges that we face are huge. And the county government here, you know, we're very fortunate, dovetails some of the initiatives that the county has taken on have really helped us tremendously. I know some of those we're going to be discussing, but it's a very wide range of issues. I mean, first and foremost, obviously, you know, with our, you know, aggressive detours, you know, what you're looking at is, you know, the massive $207 million phase one wastewater construction project that really encompasses the entire backbone of our community along Route 28 from Dennis to the Barnstable town line. And it's a massive project that also has, you know, 100 million of that tied up with a brand new treatment plant. And, you know, we're over 50% completed with the construction on that project. We're going to be continuing for the next couple of years, and it really sets the tone, I think, for everything that, you know, we're working with in the community. And I know we can talk about that at great length. There's a lot of issues that stem from that, related in somehow, that we work directly with the county government on. And I think on Barnstable County, and Liz said it, we're extremely fortunate that we have a very diverse and wide set of county services that help us. And one that comes to mind immediately is the Aqua Fund, which is the low interest loan program that has the sliding scale for income eligibility that assists local residents in the connection to the system. And we're rapidly approaching that point. When we get to the first part of 2028, Yarmouth is going to be the Aqua Fund power user to get so many people tied up, because, you know, the costs are huge to connect, you know, up to $10,000 for a residential connection to a wastewater system, you know, to have the programs in place to assist local residents in making those connections and financing them. It's just another key piece of the puzzle. Another initiative that the county supports tremendously is the Cape and Islands Water Protection Fund. And I know Mr. Forrest represents the town of Yarmouth. On that fund, it's incredibly important. And that's the fund that uses the revenues at 2.75% surcharge on the short-term rentals to create a fund that has funded literally 25% of the capital costs of all of these major wastewater projects and the support that the Cape Cod Commission gives to that in terms of the management and contracting for the financial analysis, it's tremendous. And that has been, for our local government, an enormous service. I will tell you, without that 25%, we would not have been able to put together the financing for even our phase one. So, I mean, that's a critical program. We're critically concerned as we move forward. One of our greatest challenges is to ensure, as more of these projects come online, that there's adequate funding. And, we're learning that the 2.7 surcharge on its own will not be adequate in the future to fund 25% of all of the Cape Cod wastewater projects. So that's a challenge that, we readily accept. We take that on together with the county. And, we hope to work with the Commonwealth as I know a lot of your efforts have been geared to try to enhance that, to ensure that we have those funds. And there's many other ways that the wastewater is supported, but there's also some of the water quality initiatives that I just wanted to call out a little bit that are extremely important to the town of Yarmouth. Things we're very concerned about the comprehensive site assessment that the county has been very aggressive on at the former county fire training academy for the PFAS remediation is an issue that is of tremendous concern to our community as the path of contaminants together with what we're seeing from the Cape Cod Gateway Airport is heading, into our community through the Mill Creek area and watershed in the community, and to have that comprehensive site assessment and the aggressive tone that's been set by the county in highlighting that assessment and characterizing those plumes in a much more detailed fashion, that will be what develops the comprehensive remedial actions. And we know what a huge challenge that is. We're very happy to see the leadership role that the county government has taken to ensure that that site assessment phase is comprehensive. But, these are challenges. In order to provide the funding for the comprehensive remedial actions, it's going to be something that, may very well transcend just, one agency. And we're going to have to all work together to ensure that we're able to make those comprehensive actions. And just an example of a few of the initiatives, how some of the county's priorities link together with priorities that we have at the local level.
Yeah, that's great, Bob. Commissioners, any comments? Commissioner Bergstrom?
Yeah, I went through this in Chatham with the Comprehensive Wastewater Management Plan. And at the time, we did have some funds coming through from the state. But, as probably Mark will tell you, working for the congressman, at one point, the federal government stepped up and the state government stepped up for wastewater management funds. And since then, unfortunately, it's been left to the towns, but the towns have stepped up too. I mean, you guys go to town meeting and you ask for the funds, and the people understand the priority of having clean water and having your estuaries, safe to swim in and safe for shellfishing and fishing. So, it's really a team effort between our legislative delegation, the county officials and the town officials, and I know that Mr. Wittenauer mentioned all the staff that you have behind him, but we have staff behind us too. We set priorities and we give it a sense of urgency. And we have people, fortunately, young professionals who step up and they monitor what's going on at the Fire Training Academy. We have an on-site professional from GZA that we've hired that keeps monitoring. So yeah, it's been a team effort all around. And I wish you all the success in the world. I know you have a ways to go yet. I don't mind the detour, I mean, it has to be done, if it's going to clean up the water, it's going to assure safe drinking water. So.
Commissioner Lyons?
No, I appreciate these challenges. I'm also on the board of Wellfleet now, so we are trying to get to the step of a TWMP approval. And I'm wondering if there's going to be any money left if it does get approved by the time we get around to it. But it's also the balance of where we are as a region and how much can we do, how much more population, all of these things are coming to it feels like a critical screeching point, and all at the same time, in addition to just our overall anxiety about what is the future in our governments. So I appreciate all of your challenges, and I think they're shared by other towns, but I think Yarmouth, I started out in Yarmouth. My family was here for a long time. Some of them still are. And, it's a great town, so it's well worth the effort.
Thank you. I'm glad you pointed out the Cape and Islands Water Protection Fund.
Yeah,
Bob.
it's
It's
very
an
serious.
incredibly important resource for us, and I'm glad you also pointed out the work of the Cape Cod Commission, Christy, Erin Perry, and staff for managing and helping us stretch every dollar in that fund. It's not an easy thing to do, and they do an incredible job. So thanks for bringing that up. What I'd like to do, if it's okay with folks, is that we can continue this discussion, but we can actually do it on some of the topics that are coming up. So what I'd like to do is move directly to our general business agenda, if that's okay, and get an update from Mary Vilbon on how things are progressing. Liz, I'm going to ask you to join us up here, and I'm going to leave that table for the people that are making presentations. Why don't you come on up?
Soft seat, Mary.
Yeah, she gets one of the cushy seats. Liz, you can join us right up over here. Thanks, Mary. It's good to see you.
You too, in person.
Hi, how are you?
Every year, it's usually on
Yeah.
Zoom, so it's a pleasure to see you.
Harbinger of spring.
Thank
So-
you for having me.
You're welcome. Well, update us on how things are going with our visitor center out there on Route 6.
Okay, if I could, I'd love to, as the president of the Yarmouth Chamber, I too would like to thank the town of Yarmouth and their staff, Bob, and your leadership. As you know, the Chamber of Commerce is a separate entity from the town, but most people think we're intertwined because we work so closely together. So I'd like to thank all of the staff that's here and that are working every day to make this relationship so strong. And in particular, the wastewater project, as you can imagine, on the business community has been an extreme challenge. But the town has been absolutely wonderful to work with the communication, with detours. So I just wanted to take a moment and thank all of you that are here and that work every day with the chamber. So thank you. Route 6 Welcome Center, Cape Cod Welcome Center is going full steam. We opened up this weekend. Our numbers were down significantly. We're thinking it's contributed to the weather. But as many of you know, this is a great partnership. Without the support from the Cape Cod commissioners, we could not fund this site. Keeping the amenities open for the 100,000 people that use that restroom in 4.5 months. And we track those numbers by door counts. And so we are thrilled that it provides 7 to 10 part-time jobs throughout the summer between the staff with the Yarmouth Chamber of Commerce, as well as the custodial services, the landscaping that we provide. This year, Mass DOT really stepped up for us this winter. They replaced all of the ceiling tiles within the facility. They painted, they power washed, they installed all new mirrors in the restrooms. And, Mass DOT, their staff is amazing as well. And they tell us that this is one of the most popular sites that they have in the state because we do such a great job maintaining it. And it wouldn't be without your support, MassDOT, the Cape Cod Chamber, as well as the Yarmouth Chamber and all of our volunteers that help us out there. So we really appreciate, and this has been 9 years that you guys have been funding us at the same amount, and we greatly, greatly appreciate it.
That's great. Thank you. Any questions from Commissioners Bergstrom?
Just to say that, that may be the first stop that anyone ever makes on Cape Cod when they come here from wherever they
Yeah,
come
that's
from,
right, right.
and to have clean restrooms and a nice rest area, it sets a standard for their visit. They know they're on Cape Cod, they know they're going to be well taken care of, when they're here. So yeah, I really appreciate it. And we do what we can. It was controversial 9 years ago, but we got over that. And now we're on a steady revenue stream.
You should come up and visit because sometimes when people walk in the visitor center, they don't realize they're on Cape Cod. And they're like, so we're just around the corner from Providence, right? No, you're headed towards Provincetown. So it's fun.
Right.
Oh dear, I know. People do
Commissioner
that.
Lyons.
No, I just think it's great. I remember when the relationship started and I was supportive of it then and still, and it really has improved over the years. It's really amazing how nice it is. The one I think was on 25 or 195 used to get all the kudos and, it's looking kind of, sad. So thank you for all the work you do in making sure that that is such a wonderful welcome portal for people to come in. Thank you. It's really great.
Any of our Yarmouth folks? Liz?
I'm curious, do the Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, do they still camp and run some things? That was a wonderful era too.
Yeah,
When
when COVID hit, that
COVID.
stopped. And then I think the permitting also changed with the safety issues on the site.
Are there plans, and I'm trying to remember my Cape Cod Municipal Planning Organization, are there plans to install any electric vehicle chargers?
We are not, because the state has some type of a regulation because they will be installing them at the rest area or the stop on going westbound within the next year or two. So there's,
Oh, yes, it's
can't
part
be
of this,
within the
the
miles of each other.
right, very good. Thank you, Mary.
Welcome.
Great.
Anybody else?
Oh.
Commissioner?
Just quickly, as a dog owner, I'd like to, in speaking for all the dogs that come through here, I'd like to thank you very much for having a rest area there. Appreciate it.
Yes, all
long
the
as you have
dogs
your
are welcome
bags.
as well.
Oh,
So
wow.
I should start counting those too.
Yeah.
Yeah, how many
Right.
visitors, dog visitors?
Responsible dog owner.
Yeah. Well, on behalf of the Board of Commissioners, we appreciate what you do for not just us, but for the entire Cape. So thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for supporting the businesses on Cape Cod because that visitor center could not be open without that.
Thank you.
So thank
Great.
you.
Thanks, Mary. The next item on our agenda is we're going to talk about the Shine program, and I'm going to invite our Shine team to the table for a brief presentation on some of the great work going on in Shine and here with our Council on Aging and our
I think they're having an
Team here.
anniversary.
what's that?
Hey, how are you? Good.
I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself for the audience and for the folks at home, and welcome.
Yes, good morning. I'm Christina Whitten O'Brien. I am the program manager for Shine. And good morning. I'm Mandy Speakman. I'm deputy director for Barnstable County Department of Human Services and one of the co-chairs for Healthy Aging Cape Cod.
It's great. Well, we're going to turn it over to you for your presentation and update.
Great. So I'll get us started talking about the Shine program at Barnstable County. Let's see if I can advance these slides. Excellent. So Shine stands for Serving the Health Insurance Needs of Everyone on Medicare. And we really want to make sure people understand that we're Medicare experts. We certainly do have some intersection with Mass Health, which is the state program of Medicaid, but our staff and volunteers really focus on Medicare. Our goal is really to provide free, unbiased health insurance information and counseling to the residents here on Cape Cod and the islands. Our program extends through this entire region. We also work with a lot of caregivers. We hear from adult children, relatives of older adults in the community. We receive our funding mostly from the federal government, the Administration for Community Living, through the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts through the Executive Office of Aging and Independence, also known as AGE. And we're incredibly grateful to Barnstable County and our commissioners who have had unwavering support of the program to really help us serve the residents here in Barnstable County and across the region. So again, our overall goal is to really provide as much access as possible to accurate, unbiased information regarding health insurance. And the unbiased piece is something that I want to really lift up because, you know, these are volunteers who are giving their time mostly. And we are talking about all of the products and programs available for health insurance for folks through Medicare. So a little history about Shine in Massachusetts. We started in the 80s. It actually started in Springfield, Massachusetts as a pilot program. And then it kind of moved its way across the Commonwealth as well as across the country. And in 1992, the history on Cape Cod was it started in Chatham, I think, at the Council on Aging, and then moved to Yarmouth. And the county took over the contract in 2014 and has been administering the Shine program here in the region since 2014. So we in Massachusetts like to be different, so we call it Shine. But across the country, it's called SHIP, which is the State Health Insurance Assistance Program. So SHIP is also a part of the federal government and then is administered to all the other states. So I think Florida also calls it Shine, and it may be called, I think, CARES in Connecticut, but everybody likes to do a little twist on the name. So in Massachusetts, we have 13 regional offices. There's also an office in Greater Boston at the Chinese Golden Age Center. And there are 700 Shine counselors across the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And 60% of those folks are volunteers. And I'll talk a little bit more about on Cape Cod. But the other percentage are folks who are called in-kind counselors. An in-kind counselor is employed by a hospital or a community-based organization, and they're trained to do Shine counseling as part of their job. So here we are considered Region 12, and we are the Cape Cod and Islands, and we are administered through the Barnstable County Human Services Department. Our director, Joe Pacheco, is here, and Mandy is our deputy director. And there are two of us who are employed in the Shine program. As I said, I'm the program manager. And I will tell you personally, I've been a social worker for what I can't believe is 35 years now. My college reunion is in a couple weeks. And this is some of the most rewarding work I have ever done as a social worker. It's really amazing to sit with a couple or with a family or an individual. I worked with someone recently, and we saved him $85,000 because he originally signed up for a plan where it didn't cover his medication, and we were able to get him a special enrollment period and get him the medication he needed to breathe. So it's a really big deal, the work that we do. William Redman is our project specialist. He's been doing this for about 10 years and is a very helpful and informed colleague. In Cape Cod and the Islands, we have about 57 folks who are our volunteer counselors. We actually have some of those folks in the room. We have Paula Peroni, who is here, who's one of our counselors. We'll talk a little bit more about Yarmouth. But those folks are your neighbors. They are members of the community who are looking to give their time to their neighbors. They have probably been on their own Medicare journey and realized how challenging it is, and they want to help out other folks. So they want to give back, and we're very lucky to have those folks come forward. We have 14 of those counselors or those in-kind folks who are working for our community-based organizations, giving us a total of 71 counselors. And we are now in the midst of training a new cohort of counselors, and we have 21 people in that class, and 72% are volunteers. So here in this region, we actually have the majority of our counselors are volunteers, and we could not run this program without our volunteers. So just examples of what we do. We educate people about their health insurance options. A lot of people don't really understand Medicare. They don't know the difference between Medicare and Medicaid. They don't know all the different parts. They think what they're seeing on TV from that actor who's no longer acting and trying to make a buck that's the best program for them. And little do they know that that program doesn't cross the bridge to come to Cape Cod. So we really try to give people the best information possible. We assist people with understanding what their rights are, what their benefits are. We assist them with finding the most cost-effective plan. Health insurance is very specific to the individual. If I'm sitting with a couple, one spouse may have a Medicare Advantage plan and the other spouse may have original Medicare because their needs are different, their budgets are different. We screen people for public benefits, both state and federal. 2 years ago, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts changed the requirements for the Medicare Savings Program. That's a program that assists with the costs of Medicare, and it saves people that Medicare Part B premium, which is $202.90. So when you're meeting with people who are just getting their Social Security and that's all they're living on, getting that $202.90 back in their Social Security check is a huge help. We get calls from people all the time who are struggling between paying for their groceries or paying for their medication. They're rationing their medication because they can't afford to purchase it. So we at Shine can really help them find the most cost-effective plan. And then we resolve problems with insurance companies. We have really close partnerships with a lot of community-based organizations. South Coastal County Legal Services is one of the organizations we work with. They have a Medicare advocacy project, so we collaborate with them. So this is some data. Hopefully you can read the numbers there, but what I really want to point out is our growth. If you look at this past year in 2025, we had over 7,000 contacts with beneficiaries. I asked Bill to dig into some of our data and say, because I was like, have we ever seen more than 7,000 people before? And he's like, we haven't. This is the most we've seen. So we're really proud of that number. And again, we couldn't do this without our Shine counselors who are giving of their time and meeting with folks right in their communities. So we've had about 12 to 13% growth every year of increasing those numbers. So we're seeing year over year more beneficiaries reached. And last year we made a real effort to get out into the community and to meet people where they are at, to work with our local councils on aging. I think in Yarmouth, we had 100 people come to one of our Medicare 101s last year. So we're really being able to do that work in the community with some of our information sessions, as well as meeting people individually. So again, just community outreach and education by offering seminars, Medicare 101, cost-saving seminars, doing those outreach activities in our local towns. Most towns have health benefit fairs. You'll see a table with Barnstable County, Human Services, and Shine. We were just in Yarmouth a couple weeks ago. It's a great way to meet people again where they're at. And all the projects that we've done. And then our individual counseling, we're trying to increase our touch points in the community by making more connections to community-based organizations. We've been able to, this past open enrollment, we had a counselor or a couple counselors at the Outer Cape Community Health Center serving people out in the Outer Cape. I'm also trying to work with finding a health center location in Bourne, knowing that there's going to be bridge traffic. So preparing ahead of time to make sure that Bourne is one of those areas that's on both sides of the bridge. So making sure we have access to our services on both sides of the bridge. So those are just some of the examples that we have going on. And it's not going forward. I don't know if I'm supposed to point to something. Oh, okay. So this is some just feedback. We do satisfaction surveys. I'm very proud to say that our region has been the region that has surpassed all others in returning our satisfaction surveys. So we have quotes from some of our residents, Chatham, Wellfleet, Yarmouth. The Chatham residents as a definite plus having the service. It was a successful appointment and we left much relieved. We appreciate everything that Shine does for the citizens. In Wellfleet, the counselor I met with were very knowledgeable and pleasant to deal with. They were incredibly helpful. I appreciated it. And finally, in Yarmouth, my Shine counselor was excellent. The service that Shine offers is indispensable and greatly appreciated. Elderly people like us need the service Shine offers. Thank you very much. So we're really able to help people feel relieved, confident in what they're choosing, and really helping them to live a better life by saving money and getting access to the care that they need. So in Yarmouth, we have 5 counselors. David, Paula, who's here, Helen, Dawn, and Mary Ann. We have an amazing relationship with the Yarmouth Senior Center. I want to thank Diane for all of your work to work with us. During open enrollment, the front desk is a Judith. Judith, she calls and she's like, Christina, we had a cancellation. Can you fill somebody with this appointment? So, we're really lucky to be able to do that. They offer appointments Monday through Thursday, which is very unique. So there is a presence here, a very strong presence in this town. And in 2025, that number of over 7,000 people, we serviced about 712 people in Yarmouth, and 91% of those folks were at the Council on Aging.
Oh.
Oh dear.
Point it more that way.
While we're on this slide,
Yeah.
Oops.
Diane, what is it that we need of you in order to make this work? It's space, right?
We have a professional office that we dedicate to them in the Shine office. So we dedicate that area to them. So basically.
Yeah, if you could grab that mic and just get a little bit closer so we can all hear you.
So what we do is we coordinate the appointments for them. We take all the appointments down. And then when they come in, we give them a call the night before to tell them what their appointment schedule is, so that their counselor is prepared. So for who they're going to see.
So it's truly a county municipal collaboration. And I would assume it's with all of our councils on aging or all of our senior centers or centers for active living, as we're calling them these days.
Yes.
Yeah.
So our volunteers come from, most of them are from Yarmouth, but one of them is from Brewster. She travels half an hour each Wednesday to come up to the center. So she is our longest serving volunteer. So she's been there for at least 15 years.
Oh.
So
That's great. Much appreciated. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead,
No,
Christina.
that's fine. Dear.
There you go.
Okay, great. So we're really focused on making sure that folks have access. We've done a lot of work with the Mashpee Wampanoag tribe, where I'm actually co-chairing with the state leads for the Shine program on access in our rural communities. There are parts of Cape Cod that are considered rural by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and the islands certainly are by the federal government. We're working towards multilingual accessibility. We've really struggled with that area, but we're trying more. We do have access to a statewide translation service that we can offer Shine Counseling on the phone in other languages. And again, we have, there's no cost for our service. Our service is free. And again, we're really trying to get to a lot of different types of places. Like during open enrollment, we'll go into some of the housing authorities and meet with folks there because of getting help with access, because people may not be able to get to a council on aging. And again, we're trying to just continuously expand our volunteer recruitment. The state has put the training online. Shine volunteers go through about 40 hours plus of training. They also go through mentoring, and they have to take a test, and it's 80 questions. But the good news is this is an open book test, and then they recertify every year. I know people are like, I haven't taken a test since college. What are you doing? So we're, again, just really trying to strengthen our community partnerships, continue our outreach, get out there to all different types of locations, libraries, other community-based organizations to do presentations, and our continued work with the state age program on any new initiatives. And that's it. So happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Christina. Any questions, commissioners?
I am, if I may.
Commissioner Lyons?
Okay, so I'm a big supporter of this, mainly because I did work with Shine. I was a social work, healthcare assistance access person at the Outer Cape Health in Provincetown I worked at. And we met just as you came aboard. I went to one of your sessions there in Provincetown. So I took care of Mass Health, and a lot of people would come in and say, okay, I'm turning 65 now, and what do I do? And I'd say, well, that's the end of our relationship. I'm going to hand you over to Shine, unless they had financial situations that made it different. But the assistance that this group provides to people across the Cape, we all know that healthcare is challenging, even if we're getting it through our employment. We sort of take what we get, but even when we're using it, it doesn't seem to kind of meet the expectations we all have. And they really, the group here, including Bill, who is really a master, really can help you. And if you got all this information from them and you're just not sure you can go back and get that clarity, and it's not just a one-time. They will hold your hand through that. So kudos, thank you, and it's a great program, and it would be nice one day if we didn't need it. Everybody just woke up and we all had health care, but that's in a very distant future, maybe. And but until then, I thank you for all the work you do.
Thank you.
Commissioner Bergstrom.
Yeah, I agree with everything that Sheila just said, but you know, it is a confusing landscape out there when it comes to medical care. I mean, I know quite a few people now who are turning 65 just coincidentally, and you know, many of them, a lot of us now work past 65. So now we have maybe we have carryover insurance from our jobs. We have the option of getting Medicare, Medicare Advantage. How much do we pay for our current insurance? What benefit they have, you know, for a drug. And then you go and you look at, you know, the schedule of how much they pay for each drug that you take, and so on. So it's very confusing. You have Joe Namath on TV telling us that we should, get his Medicare Advantage program. So and even sophisticated people who are sophisticated in other ways don't understand this.
Right.
They need someone to sit down with them. So this is a very valuable program. I like to mention it whenever I talk about county government. And not just because you guys do such a great job, but because I want to get the word out. It's there. You know, you do a good job of getting the word out, but we can do an even better job letting people know. So
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Diane, is there anything that you would like to add? Is there anything specifically that you would like to suggest that we could do to maybe make things work?
I want to say how much we appreciate this program. So thank you to the commission, but also thank you to Christina and to Mandy for doing it. So for keeping to provide it. The volunteers that we have are amazing. So just that they can train for this and recertify every year. They get together as a group and just kind of hash things out. So it's an amazing group and it's self-led. So they really take it seriously. So they put in quite the effort. So
That's great. That's great to hear.
there's really nothing as far as anything to add. So-
Well, yeah, go ahead, Commissioner.
No, go right ahead.
I was just going to
It's
say thank you for all of your work to make this possible.
Yeah,
'cause-
that's just one of many programs, I'm sure, that you oversee and assist with. So it's a big job.
That's great. Anybody else on Shine? Okay.
I have one comment.
Go right
today.
ahead.
I just wanted to bring up that you are having a Shine volunteer lunch on Monday.
Yes.
And I did say I was going to go and I can't go. But
Oh,
Commissioner Bergstrom is going to go in my place. Unfortunately, I have a
extra
conflict.
chicken
that
for
can't-
him.
But I wish I was there, and I do want you to, relay my sentiments and appreciation.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
sorry I can't
thank you.
make that.
Yeah. Sorry about that, but
I was
thank you.
looking forward to it,
Yeah.
actually.
Okay. The next item, we asked Mandy to talk about healthy aging Cape Cod because Yarmouth is a community where this whole topic more or less began on Cape Cod, right, Diane?
Did in 2014 we started age-friendly community team second
Yeah.
in the Commonwealth.
So Yarmouth sort of had a hand in sort of launching this initiative, and Mandy's here today to give us an update on how things are going.
Well, thanks for having me, and thanks to the commissioners and the town of Yarmouth for making time for this today. So Mandy Speakman, Barnstable County Department of Human Services Deputy Director, and I am one of the co-chairs for Healthy Aging Cape Cod, and I'm also the staff liaison for one of the work groups, our Digital Equity and Access work group, and I'm going to struggle with the
Okay. Looks like, Michael, you're gonna have to step in there and pretend you're Robin.
It's a
There we
hard
go.
job.
Well
There you
done.
go.
Thank you.
So very briefly, Healthy Aging Cape Cod was launched in 2017, and I really want to acknowledge Assistant County Administrator Vera Harik, who's in the room. She was part of the
Raise your hand.
founding
Okay, good.
group who set this up.
Indispensable.
And at that time, I was in the Council on Aging world, so I got to be on the other side of the partnership for this. And the mission has not changed. It's a collaborative effort among stakeholders across our region to make sure that we can all age in place regardless of our income. And the website is on that that slide. So Barnstable County Department of Human Services is happy to provide more information through our website. Thank you, Michael. So quickly, demographics. So often demographics are framed in a kind of gloom and doom, the ageist silver tsunami. We hear that. So we are working really hard to help reframe that conversation and talk about older adults. We are all aging, and we know that by 2030, approximately half of Barnstable County residents will be over the age of 60. And so that has impacts for all of us. I just want to point out that Yarmouth, the town of Yarmouth, is tracking at nearly double the state of Massachusetts for older adults overall, as are many of the other towns on Cape Cod. The growth of older adults in Massachusetts is significant. The growth of Yarmouth is slightly less, but that's only because Yarmouth started at a higher rate. So you are in good company with our neighbors across the region. Slide, please. So I want to quickly kind of talk about the work Healthy Aging Cape Cod is doing. We are focused on age and dementia friendly. And with the support of the commissioners, Barnstable County was able to join the state age friendly network and the state dementia friendly network in 2025. They are separate but parallel processes, and we are currently actively involved in pursuing our action plan, which will be one plan submitted to both AARP, who is our state lead for age friendly, and MCOA, who is our state lead for dementia friendly Massachusetts. So what does this mean? What does this work mean beyond convening meetings? We actively have 3 work groups at this time. In 2025, we were able to stand up the digital equity and volunteer work groups. In 2026, we have added the older adult housing work group. All 3 of those areas are broad in scope, and so those work groups have really focused in on specific action items that they want to achieve in the coming year. Each year we come together for an annual retreat and help us brainstorm together and focus on what that might mean. So the volunteer work group is working together to either build upon an existing database or explore options for creating a database where the huge pool of talented people we have on Cape Cod can go to find opportunities, and our organizations can post opportunities. So we're really looking to help create that connection. Digital equity and access, it's about internet access, it's about hardware, and it's about the knowledge and the confidence to utilize that. And we know that digital access helps with telehealth and accessing healthcare. It can help with work and volunteer opportunities, and it helps with social connection and reduced isolation. And the older adult housing piece is so broad. Housing is such a broad thing to get your arms around. So really what the work group that has been in meeting for about 4 months now is focusing on the idea of identifying our highest need for older adults on Cape Cod, and really from a broad sector of stakeholders that are participating, they're saying we need more 1-bedroom and studio units for our older adults. So we are actively inviting in speakers and looking for opportunities to educate and forward that conversation. Slide, please. So accomplishments and milestones. Healthy Aging Cape Cod, established in 2017, obviously had the brakes hit when COVID hit. And I was lucky to come into the county at the end of 2021 And so I got to work with Vera in transitioning, picking that back up and helping reinvigorate Healthy Aging Cape Cod. And so we have reconstituted our governance and updated it actually just this year. And it's based on a really successful model we've used for the Regional Substance Addiction Coalition, which relies on shared leadership. And so with very minimal dedicated staff time for this initiative, we have a group of 3 co-chairs, 1 seat preserved for the Human Services Department and the other 2 from stakeholders across the county. And then those work groups are also led by co-chairs from across the county. And so in that way, we are never reliant on one individual or one group. We have an ongoing consistency of the work. And so, as I said, we entered the Age and Dementia Friendly Networks in 2025. We've worked really hard to have a broad cross-sector coalition that is truly representative of every part of our geographic region and the makeup of our population. And we have over 30 organizations. And when I say organizations, that could be private, nonprofit, municipal. It's a broad sector. We have been able to offer some professional development and community education in that reframe aging, ageism. If you spend more than 5 minutes with me, you'll know I'm like really excited about this topic because we are all aging. We've all given one of those horrible birthday cards with the black balloons on it that no one wants to get. So kind of destigmatizing the idea of aging, as well as sage care. How do we better serve our friends and neighbors who are LGBTQ plus older adults? So we had a really phenomenal turnout for those trainings last year. Public awareness campaigns, community engagement, talking about that in-person, most time-consuming part of community involvement. But at those health fairs, wellness fairs, tabling events that we have an opportunity to get to, we can have face-to-face interactions, which are often the most impactful. And we also can connect with like those non-traditional partners. Libraries are just rising to the top. Libraries are phenomenal community partners. The county, our department has taken the lead in creating everyone wants to have the list. So we're working really hard to create a list that will be ever evolving of having one place where we can refer to tabling events, opportunities that typically happen on an annual basis so that we can work together with our colleagues in the health department, our colleagues in the Human Rights Commission, to make sure that as a county, we are getting out there in person to be at all of these events. And then we're focused on strategic planning. It's an ever-evolving thing. It will never stop. We want to make sure that we are making sure the table is always fully set, representative of our entire geographic region and of our special populations. So looking ahead, we are working on our strategic plan. And this picture is from our retreat last year, which just shows you the kind of brainstorming that we're working on together. The 3 active work groups are currently each working on their piece. I'm happy to say we have some folks from the Cape Cod Commission who participate and are going to help us with our community overview portion. So it really is sometimes it's a challenge to write as a group, but I think we will be the better for it when this comes together. And we kicked that off last October. We will have our annual retreat again this fall, where we will start to tighten and wrap it up to submit it by the end of this calendar year. And my parting thoughts I want to leave you all with is, aging well means we can do what we want to do for as long as possible. If that means staying in our homes, staying at our jobs, continuing our volunteer opportunities, thinking differently about longevity. So lifespan versus health span. How do we as a community create a livable environment that will help us be healthy and engaged for as long as possible? Health span as opposed to just lifespan and longevity. And there you go. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks. Any questions? Commissioner?
I would just like to make a comment that I think that of all of these challenges, the tech ability is going to be even more crucial. And I have very good friends, and including myself, that sometimes really don't want to deal with it because you're not sure what you're dealing with online. It's a sort of a scary place these days, and you got to be so careful of what you log on to and what you respond to. But the telehealth is going to increase. I know that from Outer Cape. We had a talk with the CEO there, and they're really transforming to predominantly telehealth, mainly because just to have access to doctors. So it's something we're all going to have to wrap our head around, and something we're going to have to know how to use. And I just think that that is going to be so crucial going forward, is the access, and how can we make it as simple as possible for people to understand. So good work. And of course, all the others are kind of shared problems by all ages. Well, even tech, but even more so for as we get older. So thank you for focusing on that.
Diane, any comments, any thoughts?
Doing a phenomenal job. She came from Chatham as a COA director, so she brings all that experience. to her.
Yeah.
Job for you.
That's great. Yeah, I think as Commissioner Lyons said, the whole digital piece to this, I've actually been in a telehealth conference with someone you could say that was cognitively impaired, and that is not an easy experience. And so the fact that we're zeroing in on this is huge, and finding ways to work with seniors and families to help figure out a way to make that work, because that is going to be increasingly a preferred option for many of our residents on Cape Cod in terms of accessing healthcare, or a certain array or suite of healthcare services. And I just see that as incredibly challenging, and a very, very big obstacle and problem for many people. So I'm glad to see that the county's working on it and interfacing with the towns to find ways to sort of overcome that challenge here in local communities. So I'm glad to see healthy aging is alive and well, and it's very busy. Commissioner Bergstrom.
Yeah, just to put some numbers on this, it costs between $30 and $40 an hour for in-house care for elderly people. I mean, that's you do the numbers 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it's very expensive. And of course, the cost of assisted living is really out of sight. So I mean, the healthier we can keep people, the better off they're going to be, because it really is a tremendous financial burden on people. And we live too long, unfortunately.
Yes,
Thanks,
good
Commissioner.
things and bad things.
Any other questions for Christina or Mandy? Hearing none, thank you.
Thank you so much for everything you do. Thank you.
You're
Have a
free
good
to
luck.
go.
Mandy, 5 minutes.
Okay,
Okay.
all right,
Go on without-
okay. We're going to invite Bill Travers and Jack Mead, who's here, our Register of Deeds. We always love hearing from Jack. He always brings us, he used to bring us good news all the time, but
Well, hopefully.
But yeah, we're very interested in what's going on in terms of scams, and we don't need to spend too much time on this, but please update us on what you folks have been discovering, what you folks have found out, and what we need to be concerned about in terms of scams targeting seniors.
Well, I'll let,
Would you like to lead in? Sorry.
you want me to start, whatever you want to go first? We haven't
first.
teamed
Yeah,
up
that's
yet.
okay. You
Good.
can
I can
work
see
it out
that
now.
This is going
Yeah.
to be a roadshow.
Let Billy do most of the overall stuff regarding scams, but specifically with regard to real estate, since I
Yeah,
got
yeah.
that lovely introduction from you. It's not really happening, okay? I want to put that on the record.
What
Despite
is it that's not happening, Jack? What's
real
being
estate
put out there?
fraud. I,
okay.
notwithstanding the ads you hear continuously, and I think that's a theme we've heard today, to some degree, that, money is being made on scaring people.
Mm.
And So I'm here not to scare you. I'm here to assuage your fears relative to real estate fraud as a large thing. It happens. Does it happen in the United States? Yes, it does. Does it happen with any kind of high percentage? No. Very, very low percentage of fraud. When you look at the FBI statistics nationally, et cetera, there really is a lot. It's not what it's made out to be. Okay. So I want to put that out there. It's difficult to commit fraud with real estate.
But what you're telling us is that there are emails, there's literature, there's messaging going out into the elder population that is attempting to scam folks into making decisions or taking actions that could conceivably jeopardize.
Well, I think there's a lot of advertising that's going out to.
But what you're trying to reassure us is that no one's going to steal your home.
You know,
and don't get
played. It's not something I would worry about. As a, you know, if you practice common sense, I mean, it takes a lot to transfer title to a deed to property. Title to the property is what you own. It's the basket of things that make your ownership of the property yours. A deed is the reflection of of the transfer of that title. But title doesn't exist like a car title. It exists as a basket of rights that you have. And I'm not trying to get too legal here, but ultimately the issue, it's more like they call it deed, you know, more accurate would be deed fraud or mortgage fraud. And ultimately, the goal of the people involved in this is to get money. Okay. So the fraud is prior to that if there's fraud happening, it's going to happen on trying to pretend that they own a piece of property and get somebody to give them a deposit on it, and then they disappear. Zillow is an issue where people, nefarious people they'll find vacant lots. Vacant lots are a target nationally, okay? What they'll do is list a lot for sale on vacant. They'll say, oh, I'm the real estate agent, or I'm the owner of this lot. Usually they say the real estate agent, and they'll figure out, and somebody will go and say, oh, I want that lot. That's a good deal. Cape Cod, you know, builders are trying to, oh, the vacant lot for sale, we'll go for that. See it on Zillow, looks like a pretty good deal. You know, first instinct is send a quick deposit check and then find out it's in the ether. Okay, it never generally gets to the point where it's going to be an actual transaction at the registry level at the final stage, especially now that the industry is much more aware of the fact that this can happen at all levels. Attorneys, banks, credit companies, the whole aspect of it is now geared up to recognize that they're assume a fraud and then work their way back. Okay, so to stop it in its tracks. So ultimately, it doesn't get to our level for the most part because those professionals that are involved along the way, the attorneys, bankers, realtors, they're the ones on the hook if they fall down on their jobs. And so they're saying, okay, our insurance guys are telling us we have to be on this, you know, and that's how that works. So ultimately, it's not that big. It's not happening nationally because of those things. It's difficult to sell a piece of property that's not yours. People come, they have inspections. I mean, it's not everyone's buying a house. They get inspections, they get surveys, they get a lot of people involved in those transactions. Vacant piece of land, maybe a little easier.
To make sure I understand it, the scam is in getting someone to online put up a deposit or transfer money to try to at least make an initial part of a transaction. And then at some point,
get a 10, 20, 30 grand deposit and disappear for just putting your name up there and getting someone to bite. That'll happen. That has happened. I think as time, you know, a few years back, people were more vulnerable to that in terms of the general people putting a check on the line.
Right.
It's never been the issue where the other way around. I shouldn't say never, but it's not like they're targeting people's property to get money out of it. I've been doing this for a long time, almost 40 years now, and I've never seen a mortgage come through where they were able to say, mortgage my house to get money out of it. At the end of the day, somebody's got to pay the money. And that person who's putting the money on the line, that entity, that corporation, whatever, is not going to just hand out money. They're going to make sure they're handing the money out to the proper entity that's doing it. Now, you know, in the grand scheme of things, could it possibly happen? Yes. Does it happen? No. One thing we've also, but notwithstanding up what I just said, we do have a consumer protection service that we offer on our website at barnstabledeeds.org. You can go to the registry homepage, click on title fraud and consumer protection, and there's a link that'll allow you to sign up and get a notice. You can't protect it ahead of time, but you will get noticed immediately if anything comes, if you sign up and put your name in, or your spouse's name, or your neighbor's name, or whatever, you can put a number of different names in, and you will get an email sent to you the second a document is recorded with that name. And you will then be able to check or call us, or you can even check yourself. You can go online. It gives you the information about the recording itself, and you can go look it up and say, oh, okay, Jack Mead's, that's another Jack Mead. He lives in Chatham. Not my property. There's another, so you can look and see what's going. Oh, I recorded a discharge of mortgage. I even forgot. My bank was sending that in the other day. That got on record. You got noticed immediately that that has happened. So, and you can take care of your neighbors who may not be up, and put their name in. You can put 5 names in for each email address that you are using. So it's all public record, so you're not giving anything away here, but the reality is you will get an email notice that says a particular document came on under that name. Now, if we have a common name, you can narrow it down by town, which makes your life easier, but you want to be, you may get a lot of emails if you have.
So it's right there at the Registry of Deeds webpage.
Webpage, absolutely. So,
Bill, did you have something to add?
Yes, actually, and that's a very specific example, and maybe I should have gone first since my whole thing's a bit more negative, but I guess macroscopically speaking, this type of these attempted frauds are extremely pervasive. They're everywhere. Everybody gets them constantly. And quite often they have nothing to do with just speaking from the perspective of an internal IT department. It's completely external to us, so we have very little control over what goes down, and we can do our best to offer guidance, but that's where human services outreach and the deeds posting information on their site is so valuable. But the more kind of all-inclusive rules of the road to live by, just try to generalize as much as possible, is just look out for the telltale signs, sense of urgency, changes of patterns. So an urgent request to wire money, no. Don't. Just the person will understand if you take a second to call them to verify, and that is really the cornerstone of everything. If I were to take the 8 or so bullet points of how to navigate these situations, it would really boil down to: you get a notification, go to the source and verify it to a known contact, the town website, what have you, and start from there. That's really the moral of the story there. Outside of that, this is, specifically, I touched on it before, very interesting for me just because it's beyond our direct control. So we can't, there's been so many trouble tickets that we get over the years where at face value, it looks like it's a business email compromise, like someone in one of our customers or the county that was compromised and is sending something out. Not the case at all. It's just a cleverly spoofed email address with a misspelled domain name, and it's completely outside of our purview. It's basically one private individual scamming another private individual, and it's unfortunate. But it's I think growing pains of society in general. There's people call us on the phone all the time, and we're used to not answering and screening phone calls. Don't trust caller ID, by the way. But I mean, I think eventually we'll get there in the grand scheme of things, but it's a rough patch, and not to mention the AI element not being a problem in and of itself for this specifically, but it's certainly amplifying this and making it easier for threat actors that would otherwise not bother perhaps to dabble in it. And it is also, it's a mixed kind of signal for other aspects. Like from my perspective, historically, these sorts of compromises were technology focused, as in there was an exploit, a vulnerability in the hardware, the software that was being leveraged. But Turns out things are pretty good these days, and those are more difficult to find. They're corrected more quickly, so people are exploiting the next best thing, which is the person.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks, Jack. Questions from the commission? Commissioner Lyons.
So I'm sure anybody that works in municipal government here, and I know on the county and even in healthcare, when I worked in that, you're going through trainings, periodic trainings of, we call it No B4.
That's right.
So it's how to identify these things. And I find them very helpful and scary, and that's what makes me not want to go on the computer. But I do feel somewhat educated and armed. So for people who are not affiliated with a workplace of some kind that might be offering this training, say the average citizen, are there programs, applications that they could go to that you know of? I mean, if you don't know, you don't know, that's okay. But where the average citizen can go in and really kind of educate themselves as to what to look for, these types of scams, especially in the world of AI coming on, and it could even be a person coming across that you think you know, and it's not that person at all.
Exactly, right. There's a good amount of free resources out there publicly available, but the issue becomes, leading a horse to water, or whatever euphemism you want to use, seeking that out. And it's if you would like to learn more about it, there's a lot of avenues to do it. But I think the proactive outreach, like with the Healthy Aging program, I think is something that can kind of push this out there to be more visible and not rely on people seeking it out specifically.
Good. Thank you. Commissioner Bergstrom.
Yeah, oftentimes when somebody's a victim of one of these scams, they send $5,000 to some relative that's in jail somewhere. You say, and you go, well, what can you do about it? And they go, well, we can look into it, but, it disappears into cyberspace. I don't believe that for a minute. I don't believe that for a minute. I mean, if we can read Putin's license plate from some satellite up there, if we can spend billions and tens of billions of dollars in armaments and understanding the, military assets all around the world, we certainly, with the cooperation of the companies, the IT companies, we could find a way to determine who's doing this. And I think that part of it is that it's a privacy concern. Well, we leave us alone. Don't go into it. Don't question who's sending money through our services and stuff. But I really do believe that somewhere along the line, I'm going to have to come to grips with this, because my inbox is full of stuff that I don't even bother to click on unless I know who it is. And more and more, I mean, it's becoming such a scam, whereas someone, on a computer, that sound 100 of these things, and if one person bites, they get the money. So I mean, I'm not by any means very savvy about the internet and so on, but I do believe that we as a society have to go a little further in determining where the cryptocurrency goes, and who's getting it, and who's responsible. And we're going to get into that, because I know that currently local district attorney is looking for a staff person to look into this. We haven't got the resources. The state hasn't committed, it's not their fault, but they haven't committed the resources to follow up on a lot of these locally based scams. And I think that's such important that we give them the assistance they need. So,
Bill, did you want to respond?
Yeah, on the forensic side, you're right on that last point for sure. But I was just going to kind of say that your entire approach towards this as a concept is healthy. Healthy skepticism. You don't have to really understand something fully to know to be careful and tiptoe around it. So
I think this topic was put on the agenda because our IT directors want us to do all of the training and all the compliance programming. I think that's where this came from, Bob.
Cybersecurity training.
I think that's a good
Exactly, because
idea.
I get bombarded by these emails all the time. I know we're sick and tired of getting them, but I think we get it. I think we get it. All right. So everybody, the message to all staff is do your training,
Yes.
right?
Mhm.
Yes, Liz. Yeah.
I had a scam issue, and what saved me was the fact that I had used a credit card. So I would ask you, as somewhat of our specialist, maybe maybe your credit card company can be your best friend if you stick to using credit cards, because they have their own wall.
They certainly can be, and that goes back to the whole changes in patterns. It's like, why would someone ask me to wire money when you know they could accept payment through other means, or they could ask you to go down to town hall and give them a check? Why? Yeah, so that's it.
Skepticism.
Yes, exactly.
Thank-
Wiring money is like
Not a good idea.
Lag,
bad idea.
That's good.
lag. Yes.
In
All right.
in this day and age, law firms won't do it anymore. So-
All right, unless there's any other comments, I'm going to excuse you. Thank you both for being here today to let us know that you're working on this problem. And it's great to see the Register of Deeds. It's got actually a place on the website and an office that can
Yeah.
provide some
No, that's really good.
answers. So thank you for doing that.
Happy to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to see you, Jack.
All right.
See you, Billy.
Next item on the agenda is we're going to invite Christy Senatori up to talk a little bit about where we stand with a regional open space plan and how that can assist towns, as well as a discussion and a brief presentation followed by a discussion on the construction disruption assistance program that the commission is working on. So Christy, welcome. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. And thank you very much for the invitation to be here. It's really impressive to see the collaboration between the Barnstable County Commissioners and the town of Yarmouth. And really the breadth and diversity of the topics you've already discussed and what's left on your agenda is fantastic. So congratulations to you all. I'm very excited to be here to talk about two initiatives that are still in their early stages, but wanted to give you an update on some of the work that we're doing and then have an opportunity for a dialogue here. And the first is our regional open space plan. Am I going to be able to use this? I'll try. Okay, let's see if this works. Sure. So again, we're in the very early stages of the development of a regional open space plan. And to set the stage, typically we use maps. Obviously, we are a regional planning agency. We like to really frame everything with data and information. And I don't think that's going to work. There we go. So here what you're seeing, and many of you may be familiar with this map series that I'm going to show, but this is the parcel development by decade. You can see those parcels that are shaded in the darker colors are the development patterns from the 1900s through to the present day, with the majority of the development happening on the Cape from about 1950 to 2000. If you click forward to the next one, you can see the amount of protected open space across the region, which is about 40% of our land constituted by protected open space. And so if you take the developed parcels and you layer those with those protected open space parcels, if we click to the next slide, what you can see here is about 87% of our land is either already developed or already protected. So we know a lot of the discussion and the dialogue is really understanding the pressures that are facing our region, whether it's with relation to protecting open space, building new housing development. And so really the conversation is to set the context about why protecting open space going forward is critical and certainly something that all of our communities need to continue to discuss. So you can see here in this chart, we've broken it down by each of the 15 towns across the region and the percent of that area that's protected open space. And you can see those range in some of the higher towns on the Outer Cape, Provincetown, Truro, certainly have higher numbers in terms of that percent of their area within their community. Some of those towns, perhaps in the Lower Cape, are a little bit less. And then if you go to the next slide, we can see the percent of area that's not developed or protected. You can see Provincetown leaving very little left that's either not protected or developed, and maybe some opportunities in some of those other communities such as Harwich and Mashpee. And so as many of you know, we have a regional policy plan, which is updated about every 5 years or so. The most recent regional policy plan was adopted as a Barnstable County ordinance and completed at the end of 2025. There's a goal for open space within that regional policy plan to conserve, preserve, or enhance a network of open space that contributes to the region's natural and community resources and systems. And within the regional policy plan itself, there's a recommendation for the development of a regional open space plan. As you know, we have a number of topic-specific plans. We have an economic development strategy, a transportation plan, a climate action plan, a housing strategy, a number of topic-specific plans. And so we, through a series of focus groups during the development of our regional policy plan, identified this as a recommendation. So now we're moving forward with the development of a regional open space plan. So really trying to identify those opportunities for a regional look at protecting our open spaces across the Cape. And so we've really identified that there are a number of regional priorities that we need to address during the development of this regional plan. Certainly looking at our sensitive habitats, identifying and protecting those potential public water supply areas, that's already come up a bit today, as well as protecting those areas and addressing coastal floodplains as some of our priorities within the development of this plan. And so here you can see the draft framework for the development of the plan. We are still in the very early stages of this, but we are in the data collection and analysis phase right now. We've developed open space profiles. We're doing an economic analysis of open space values. Obviously looking at mapping and identifying and analyzing those lands that are undeveloped, unprotected, and then certainly making sure that we're reaching out to a broader section of the community through stakeholder and community engagement, meeting with the municipalities, land trusts, and doing a number of stakeholder and public meetings to make sure that the plan itself is fully informed and that the plan is something that the local communities are interested in moving forward. And then, of course, developing the regional open space plan with a number of resources that can help our communities. So the open space profiles that I mentioned are in draft form, and we have been meeting with all of our Cape towns through our municipal staff and really trying to make sure that we have the best available data and information contained within those profiles. So you can see a draft of one here. It contains a number of different elements that are helpful for our communities. And so we're looking to make sure that that has the most accurate information contained within it so that those can then be a resource for our communities. And you can see that the next slide, the status of all of the local open space and recreational plans from all of our towns. Many of those are current plans, some that we know are in progress, and some that have expired, and that we know we'll be working with hopefully in the next several months or years to be making sure that those are updated. The value of having these open space and recreation plans approved by the state is really to be able to bring in some more resources to protect land. So this will certainly be an important component of the regional planning process. And then I mentioned the municipal meeting. So we really wanted to start this stakeholder engagement process with reaching out to the towns to identify a number of priorities and challenges, as well as what resources would be helpful going forward. So you can see the towns on the left that we've met with. I think we've met with 12 of the 15 so far. They've been very productive meetings. Thank you certainly to the staff in Yarmouth for participating. We appreciate all the valuable feedback and input. We have a few more towns left to schedule. So really the focus has been on identifying some of the local priorities and challenges, really the goals around open space that are at the local level, and the identification of specific parcels or locations that the towns may want to prioritize for open space, and then how they're prioritizing open space acquisition, and some of those top challenges that the region or the towns are facing as they look to prioritize protecting open space. And then we really want to make sure that this is a regional plan that's going to be useful for the local community. So making sure that we're asking the questions about what tools and resources will be helpful as we develop this regional open space plan. And then, of course, we want to make sure that we're reaching out to the right stakeholders within the communities. And so finding out who within the communities should be involved in this regional stakeholder process. And then who will we need to make sure is engaged, because we want to make sure that the process is successful. So we want to make sure that all of the right people are at the table to support the process and the plan itself. And so some of the feedback that we received to date, I mentioned that we've met with 12 of the 15 towns so far, are consistent with some of the priorities that we identified at the outset. So really making sure that we're protecting our water supply, we're protecting the buffers to water bodies. We're making sure that the plan and the local connectivity between trails and habitat is prioritized, enhancing access to open space that's already existing, and then, of course, protecting that town character. Many of the challenges that we heard were consistent from meeting to meeting, and that some of the challenges were really related to staff resources, related to public education, and really balancing competing interests. I think we've already heard this morning that that balance is really critical. And so making sure that we can continue to balance competing interests is something that we need to make sure is incorporated into this plan. And then as we look at what tools and resources might be useful and helpful as we develop the plan, an interactive map of open space across the region was identified as something that would be prioritized. So that's something that we'll be looking at. And then potential regional resources that could be brought in to acquire different open space parcels across the region. So the slide just right before that is just a quick snapshot of our Data Cape Cod site, which contains a lot more data and information around permanently protected space across the region. So certainly if you want to, you're welcome to go in. You can play with the different toggles. You can turn off different parameters, and it gives you an opportunity to really interact with the data and information yourself. So happy to answer questions. This is just a really brief snapshot of what we're doing with the Regional Open Space Plan. I also did just want to identify Heather McElroy, who's our project or program manager within our Natural and Water Resources department, is here. If you have more specific questions, she's certainly the expert here. But wanted to just give you a brief high-level overview of some of the work that we're doing on open space.
That's great. Thanks, Christy. Commissioners.
Yeah, just, this goes along with a presentation that was given to us by Andy Gottlieb a couple of meetings ago on the limits of the limited amount of truly open space that's left on the Cape, and more, and I'm sure my fellow commissioners have experienced this, it's become a big issue because people are starting to realize that there's so little left. So each decision on housing or some other public facilities that would result in even a small amount of open space being eliminated becomes a big issue now, more so than it ever did before. And so a lot of it unfortunately falls on the commission, when they come in there and they say, well, we can't do this because we don't want to cut down any trees and so on. And I sympathize with that, but somehow we have a comprehensive look like this and a decision to what we want the Cape to look like in 10 years is a way of avoiding each little, argument. So we have a goal, when we can identify those areas which can be developed, we identify those areas which are already developed, which can be redeveloped, and we can identify those areas which we want to maintain open space in perpetuity, and that will help us as we go along town meeting by town meeting and we decide what we're going to do, and a lot of work went into this, I can tell, a lot, but it's really appreciated, and your staff does a terrific job.
Commissioner Lyons.
I have a lot of things, thoughts about this, but we keep saying when I first started in this job, it was like 18% was left. So now we're down to about 10 across the board of undeveloped.
Yeah, it's about 13,
restricted.
14%.
So, I'm not sure how we track that, but what do we do? And when is the point of no more? I mean, when do we recognize that and make that hard decision? Because it just seems to me, again, there's this feeling of everything is racing towards a point, and lately it feels like everybody's racing to see how much they can squeeze out of Cape Cod for their own interest or ownership, and all of that is changing the Cape. And, we all know that the environment is our economy here. And when will it hit that tipping point where it's just going to be like any place else? So I always felt that the county is here to keep a special place special. And I'm not putting this on the commission. This is the forces. These are these competing forces that are huge because there's usually a lot of money behind them. We're at the point where the state is giving some sort of allowance through different mechanisms that you can change environmental regulations to squeeze in these things. These were regulations that we all bought into and said we're going to be good stewards. And now it's almost being encouraged to undo that. And I have a real problem with all of those things. As a commissioner, as a citizen, as a person who really does feel that this was a very special piece of land. And, I started coming here. I have memories of Cape Cod going back over 50 years now, I hate to admit. And it's a very different place. And I get very nervous. And I live on the Outer Cape, and I feel like this is the last of what the Cape was about. And even we are going through those struggles. And the biggest, concern of the Outer Cape is the water availability. Provincetown hasn't had its own water in, probably 30, 40 years. They are allowed to take it from Truro. So there's these issues that I think that we have to be very well aware of and advocate for vocally and question. But this is something for us to see where we are now and where do we want to go. This is up to us to make these decisions. So, and I know that the commission's there to help support those decisions. But all right, I'll get off my soapbox. There's my editorial of the day. Thank you.
Thank you,
For indulging
Commissioner.
me, Mr. Chair. And
Thank
thank you, Christy, for all the work the commission does in keeping us informed. And
I'm going to invite some of our local officials to chime in and offer some comments. Obviously, this is being done to help the towns as well.
yes,
Identify priorities for local open space committees, local officials that are working on protecting open space, which I think is terrific. I like the fact that this planning effort helps target critical areas for protection. And I am pleased to see that the water supply, water resources priority shows up on this part of this process, which I think is terrific. I too want to thank Christy for all the hard work that's going into this process and all the hard work that Heather is putting into this as well. I think this is kind of at a critical point for us because the pace of development has been picking up, and we need to make sure that we don't lose some of these critical environmental resources that we know are increasingly threatened. So I think the county, by stepping into this void to help address this, is playing a critical role for those like you, Commissioner Lyons, that are worried that we may find ourselves developing areas that would probably be better preserved or protected, whether it's for wildlife habitat, water supply purposes, or just pure open space that's been enjoyed and has a real value in a community. I think where I see this plan being helpful to the towns is identifying those areas, but also to the extent that we're competing for grant funding. My hope is that the plan itself can confer a certain status. So when, let's say, the town of Yarmouth, because the town of Yarmouth has pursued grant funding in the recent past and has been successful. Kudos to Team Yarmouth. And by having perhaps some of the town's land parcels that it's pursuing to protect, to also get conferred some kind of status of being designated in a regional plan in addition to a local plan, my hope we can convince the state to somehow confer some status to this regional plan so that it ranks higher in terms of priorities for acquisition. I think that's where I'd like to see us go, is to make sure that the parcels, the properties, the resources that you've identified as being a priority can somehow help the towns in convincing the state to help the towns get grant money. So I think having the county, because let's face it, the counties have played that role over the years. I remember the horse and buggy days where in order to get a grant, you had to basically get a sign off from the regional planning agency on so many grants. Was it consistent with the regional plan? Was it consistent with this, that, or the other thing? So there's been a tendency to do that. If we can somehow make it so that a town gets more brownie points and more points for a land acquisition project because it meets a county priority, I think that's all to the good. So having said that, Liz?
Yes, and I don't know, did you want to say anything, Bob? I should defer to you.
Well, I had an issue that I did want to raise, but before I do that, I just want to celebrate a little bit and recognize, I know Brittany DiRienzo is here, our conservation administrator, and working with the select board, we're just planning on closing a wonderful open space acquisition, which is an enlargement of our historic Taylor Bray Farm in Yarmouth Port that is just a wonderful acquisition of property that was specifically threatened with residential development. In fact, it was owned by the local condominium association up at Kingsway, and in order to gain the benefit for the residents, they were planning residential development, and working with our team, we were able to, attract a $350,000 land grant and get a nice price on this property. And, it was very complicated. We had to wind up in the land court and all of these issues coming together. And it really helps having not only a team in place, but to also, support for local land trusts is critical.
Yes.
You look at the communities with the strong land trusts. Those are the communities that are really moving forward and doing things. And I know, we've got a great land trust here in Yarmouth, but to have more types of support, regionally for those land trusts, I think would be extremely helpful. And another great victory that we've had recently, again, working with the select board and also our DPW team in water, wastewater, the acquisition of properties on Higgins Kroll Road that was literally subdivided into 10, big lots immediately adjacent to the public water supply wells. And by wrapping that property up, again, it turned into a tremendously complex acquisition, as now that we're getting, to the bitter nub, right, of all of these, why isn't this property developed yet? Well, there were tremendous problems with the deed, but we were able to identify those, work through them. We're in the land court now trying to get the deeds cleared up, but those are some big opportunities, issues that we've leveraged. And it kind of points to another area that increasingly we see. And now Yarmouth is a developed community. We don't have as much, percentage that is not developed. Yet the needs here, you could even argue, are more so than in areas that have more rural properties. We're finding that the new frontier for identifying water supply protection, recreational opportunities, open space preservation comes in the form of redevelopment and undevelopment. And, we've been looking at some properties, and we've partnered with the Barnstable Land Trust in looking at a very interesting piece of property that straddles the town of Barnstable and the town of Yarmouth over that Anthony's Cummaquid that had the, horrible fire out there. But with the building gone, we've been working again. I hope Mark's still here, our building commissioner.
He's
to-
here, he's hiding in the back.
Giving his hand.
His efforts and
Heckling
our fire
protection,
chief
he
to
said.
eliminate the toxic waste issues associated with that horrible fire. I mean, it's been unbelievable efforts, but now, we're left with, it's about 10 acres of property that is in a very, very just exposed area that is right, waterfront. And, what's going to be the future of that property? Are we just going to see it, be more
Condos.
residential development? It's a very iconic spot. People that, grew up here in the Cape have all had that Anthony's Cummaquid spot, a very central part of just, their identity, whether it's marriages or parties and things like that. And it's just another example of a piece of property that was not open space, yet it is in one of the most sensitive environmental and, scenic areas.
Right.
And how do we continue to identify those opportunities to take advantage of properties that may have previously been developed but could be undeveloped? And how do we work? You mentioned, Mark, the idea of getting a designation with the state to identify these sites as priorities, because the funding we find is more than when you have just pristine open space that is, say, forested. We have paved areas. Pavement needs to be removed. We have engineering, 21E studies, environmental remediation, all of these things. But if you can navigate this whole labyrinthian system and then be able to clear up the title issues, you have some open space that's extremely iconic. So I bring out a couple of those issues, and I know our team works on that stuff all the time, and it would be great to, just do more partnering on that.
I think you make,
Go ahead, Mark,
Interesting
sorry.
issues.
yeah, I just want to say, I think Bob makes an excellent point that today, with open space acquisition, it's more than just buying the land. There are usually, today, there are a host of other issues involved with dealing with an acquisition, particularly if it's one that is precious and, as in some cases, historic as that particular site that you just mentioned. No, I think that's well stated. Liz?
I just want to add that we also, in Yarmouth, are working towards what can we do with the property that was home for Mattakees Middle School and the Emmy Small Elementary School. And there's been a lot of work by a committee that was very friendly named the Mattakees Reutilization Committee, known as MUCK. They've mucked around for years, and I believe we're going to be looking to the private sector to see if there's any interest in some development. And there is concern from some people that it is water, adjacent to water preservation lands and conservation lands. And the other issue that raises my concerns is it's also home to one of the larger solar installations on the Cape. And to carry out some of the plans that have been looked at by this committee, that would have to be removed. And I worry that we're getting our economic values confused in the light of having not enough space to do what we want to do. And do we need to then compromise? And can the commission and the county guide us through the work that you're doing right now in this process that we've undertaken in Yarmouth with this property, the Mattakees Utilization Committee? So thank you.
Thank you, Liz. Anybody else on this topic? And I'm going to just call out, shout out to the folks in the audience, Brittany, Christine. Yes, Christine, do you want to come up to the podium? Yes, by all means. Grab it. And just introduce yourself, Christine, so everybody knows who you
Christine
are.
Marzigliano from the Yarmouth Conservation Trust. I have 2 points. One is we have the open space report and everything. We need in each town to make that there's a segue to the selectmen's priorities. If it doesn't make the priority list of the selectmen, perhaps they're not going to move on something for open space. That's one thing. The second thing is in Yarmouth recently, there were 2 parcels of property, nothing special about them, wouldn't make the list, of wetlands or anything else. They were 2 pieces of upland woods where the neighbors wanted to buy the property. In one case, it was already sold. It was up for sale for 10 years. Once it's sold and somebody wants to put a house on it, the neighbors really can't object to it. I think we have to reach out to the public saying that if there's open space near you, that's not you want to purchase, you've got to move on it. The second parcel recently, which just happened 2 weeks ago, where the parcel's has been owned by a family for 100 years. And everybody in the neighborhood wanted to buy it. They came up too late. It got sold on the market before it even became, up for sale. And now it's going to be developed. So there's another avenue that we need to reach out to. With both parcels were just upland woods, plain pieces of property, but they were open space. And if people want to purchase them, they've got to move ahead of time. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Christine. Anybody else? All right, what I'd like to do, Brittany, come on up.
Hi, I'm Brittany Durianza, the Conservation Administrator for the Town of Yarmouth. And I appreciate this plan very much that the Commission has put together. And I just wanted to add that I think it would be extremely helpful as part of this program. You know, the first thing we think about when protecting open space is outright ownership from the town, but is to facilitate those other avenues of protection, permanent protection, temporary protection, for our existing landowners so that they can understand there's options for them to pursue to protect this open space that may even have financial benefits for them in addition to the rest of their community. Thank you.
Right. I think that's very important.
Brittany, thanks. Yeah. Commissioner Bergstrom.
You know, just in the previous comments, yeah, the ability to move quickly on a piece of property that becomes available is very important. And you know, to try to put in some kind of process by which local conservation trusts can act, you know, have a basically a fund of money supplied by the town where they can act quickly. It would have to probably go through, it couldn't go through town meeting because town meetings only occur once or twice a year. It probably would have to go to the approval of the selectmen because we're responsible to the public. So if we mess up, they have someone to blame. You know, you can't have a local committee. But I think the ability to act, the ability to have a fund dedicated to purchasing even small pieces of property. I go by the Harwich Conservation Trust. Every so often you go by a lot and it has a sign there. You know, it's not a big lot, but it's part of the open space. So that's important. I think that's something that towns can look at. Another thing is that when you protect open space from development, not only are you providing environmental relief, but you're also taking cars off the road. And you're preventing the infrastructure from having to be extended that much further. I went by Route 6 where it narrows down from the 2-lane highway to the 1 lane, and it's backed up, and here it is May, you know. So the more development we get, not only does it take away from open space, but it adds to existing problems of traffic and water and everything else that we have.
If I could just
Commissioner Lyons,
add
yes.
one final thought on this. You know, and I've talked about this with our administrator here. So, you know, towns are sort of tied to development for income and taxes and property taxes and that sort of thing. But we're at the point where you're going to be spending those taxes and protecting these. You're going to be putting it out in wastewater treatment plans, and you're going to. So everything we develop is costing. What is the cost benefit? And that's where I think we have to look. And what do we do when we don't have that economic growth in that way, the traditional way? We're not 20 miles wide. We're not all on bedrock. We're not in the middle of the state where we can keep, you know, pushing out there's not a lot of room here. And the room that we have could potentially cost, you know, every time we add, it's costing us to protect that. So this is what I think we have to start getting our minds around as municipalities and as a region. Why do we keep doing it? You know, if it's just more and more to protect it or to clean it up, what we're doing. So I think these are things that we have to really take into consideration when these things are before us. And the more you can pursue keeping something undeveloped, I mean, we're all going to be gone, you know, at some point, and there's going to be other people. Do they not have a chance of anything? I mean, there are hopefully going to be generations beyond us. Maybe they'll get to see some of the Cape as it was if we can kind of put it back together again. And I just keep feeling like we're all sitting here like we're the last, and we're not. And we have to think about those other generations and what the benefit of this beauty and special place brings to others. So even if they're just visiting, which we all did in the beginning and then fell in love, but and now we're loving it to death. So
Thank you, Commissioner.
anyway, thank you.
Thank you. All right, what I'd like to
Way
do
to
is,
go on.
there's another part of Christie's presentation, and it's to get into this conversation about construction disruption assistance.
Yeah,
So
well,
let's get into
Hopefully
the.
Yarmouth is getting some of that.
See.
Yeah, you hopefully could use some too.
Okay, great. Thank you. And first, I just wanted to thank you for all of that feedback on our regional open space planning. That's very helpful for us. We're again in the very early stages, and so we look forward to coming back to you as we proceed through the process. But as the chairman mentioned, we are working on a construction disruption assistance strategy, and you can see the purpose really is to provide research and strategies to support our towns and local business community during significant construction projects, primarily wastewater, to lessen some of those disruptions to business operations and economic hardships. I think we already heard Commissioner Bergstrom this morning identify that there was a major detour. I think we've all, if you've traversed the Cape at all recently, you've probably encountered some of these detours and these disruptions. And so we've heard from several of our communities. I know Yarmouth is really taking the lead on this. We've heard that this is becoming a challenge that we're looking for some resources and some support to work with our communities and our local businesses on. So if we move to the next slide, you can see here that we've developed a scope of work. It really is 3 different categories here: doing a needs assessment, doing some research, and then developing some strategies and recommendations. So the first part is really that needs assessment, and that's really where we'll start. And we've already begun some of this work, is really looking at what municipal and business stakeholder engagement will be necessary. We want to do some interviews and a survey to really determine what the range of impacts and needs are for our local communities, our local businesses, so that we can then summarize all of that and identify what the real needs are, and then that gap analysis. Really what's needed, what's missing, and what would be able to help our overburdened businesses. That next part here is really doing some research. There are programs that are working in other communities, not only across the Commonwealth, but even across the country and beyond. So we want to see what might be helpful, where we could potentially use some of those resources here, identify funding sources and programs that are working in other places, some of those beneficiaries that are able to take advantage of some of these potential funding opportunities. And then really kind of pull all this together into some information that we can share with our communities, with our municipalities, so that they can determine what might be the best approach for the local communities. And then the final piece is on the next slide, under the strategies and recommendations, really identifying some of those short-term and long-term strategies to support our towns and businesses, really with the key of mitigating the financial impacts and reducing economic disruption through possible new programs or programs that might be existing that could be fully or further resourced. So really looking at doing some research on best practices, models that have worked elsewhere, developing a resource guide. And then one of the key components here is really a communications toolkit. Every community seems to be approaching this a little bit differently, but perhaps there's another approach that could be useful here. So that's something that we'd like to develop and work with our local communities to see what would be most useful for supporting local businesses during these construction phases. And then finally, really looking at opportunities to mitigate the financial stress during construction and identifying those financial instruments that could potentially help meet some of the capital needs. So this is something that we have heard would be really valuable, would be useful for many of our communities, not only now, but as we look at long-term infrastructure projects over the course of the next decade. How can we help our community? So this is very early stages. We're just in this scope of work phase, but I wanted to highlight it for you. I do know that Yarmouth has really taken the lead on a lot of this, and I think that we're looking forward to working with the communities as we can identify solutions that might be helpful. So I think that's my last slide. Yeah, perfect. Okay, great.
That's great. Thank you, Christy. Commissioner Bergstrom.
Yeah, a lot of this is planning speak. You have to get through it to know exactly what you're saying, mitigate this and discuss that. But I mean, we all understand what the issue is. I mean, in the businesses along that stretch of 28 that were closed, people are gonna have a hard time accessing them, and they're gonna suffer financial loss. So what do we do about it? Maybe there's not much that we can do, but I applaud you for looking into this and coming at least some kind of a game plan that we can work on to help them, because I mean, it's a short season on Cape Cod. People have to make their money in a short time, and we value those businesses. They employ people, and they support families, and my sympathy goes out to them. You try, I'm sure the town of Jeff and his friends have probably tried to limit the amount of the impact of those, but you can only do so much, So yeah, I think it's an issue. Glad you brought it up.
That's great. Commissioner Lyons.
No, I'm not going to add anything. I could go on, and we're getting short on time, but I do think that, if Yarmouth took the lead, I can see why, because you do have a lot going on and you do have that corridor that's being affected. But, you know, all of these towns are going through it. I know that we've had backups in Wellfleet trying to get just a road paved. So it does really impact the communities. There's not a lot of places to divert and detour to that are simple. So
That's great. Bob, Jeff, anybody from the town of Yarmouth want to chime in?
No, thanks.
Feel free to.
Yeah, I'm happy to make a couple of comments. Jeff Colby, the Public Works Director. This is definitely an impactful project for wastewater. I think it's helpful that the commission is looking at this because it really impacts most communities on Cape Cod, frankly. And we just happen to be very active right now, but there's other
Right in the
communities that are
thick
going to
of
be
it.
more active kind of going forward. And the other thought is the Yarmouth plan, and I think many communities are in the same situation, are 30 or 40-year plans. So we have a long term ahead of us with these types of impacts. We're doing our major commercial corridor, and then we'll be moving into neighborhoods, so it'll certainly be less impactful. But I think any lessons learned could be helpful to share with other communities, and we're also very happy to see if what we're doing can be improved in any way. And I think all these studies and informations will be helpful in that regard.
That's
I
great.
think that's great.
Thanks,
you.
Joe. This is, any other comments from our friends in Yarmouth? Yes, Megan, grab that mic.
I'm glad the county is taking the lead on this. It's a regional problem, and Yarmouth has experienced it in the business front. And talking with businesses, it's first and foremost money. They're losing money. That's the bottom line. But finding a good communication plan is going to be key, because visitors that go down 28, they don't know what they don't see. So they're being detoured around businesses, and having a sign that says businesses are open during construction. They're getting detoured around, but they don't know what those businesses are. So you don't know what you're missing if you're getting detoured around. So we're happy to help partner with you going through this, but thank you for taking on this project.
That's great. Anybody else?
I will just say that somehow your GPS has picked up on a lot of these detours, because I had to go to the RMV, which is always a challenge. And, you know, it moved it, and then where is it in that mall? And, but it brought me right into the right place in the back lanes, and Jupiter Lane brought me right in. So, you know, it does help to know the geography of the town a bit, but I trusted what it was saying, and yeah, it got me there. So whoever's logging that in is doing a good job as far as that's concerned. But I knew what I was looking for. As you say, if you go by and say, oh, I want to go in there, you don't know it's there.
Very good. Christy, thank you so much for being with us today and these
Yes, thank you.
exciting updates. Great work. Great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next item on the agenda is a fascinating one. The town of Yarmouth's Natural Resources Department has been working with the Friends of Bass River and our county dredge program to figure out creative ways to deal with dredged material, stuff that typically gets put up on the beach. They're actually thinking of another creative way to use dredge material. And the multifaceted, multidimensional Ken Cirillo. He's going to have many titles to his position. So I'm going to turn it over to them. Okay. I'm going to turn it over to them to give just sort of a brief update on this very creative project that they're working on.
Thank you, Mark. My name is Rick Bishop. I'm the executive director for the Friends of Bass River. And if some of you may know, Bass River, at 7.1 miles long, unites the towns of Yarmouth and Dennis. It's the longest river or estuary on Cape Cod by far. Friends of Bass River is a nonprofit that was established to help protect the water quality of Bass River. In 2020, we initiated a Upper Bass River Headwaters Restoration Project, which is 52.7 acres of retired quarry bogs, 2 undersized culverts, and they'll be replaced with a 60-foot wide bridge on North Dennis Road and a 24-foot wide bridge on Weir Road, which will reestablish a fish habitat that's been dormant for maybe 100 years. But today I wanted to share an urgently needed project I believe the county is uniquely positioned to participate in. Photo? The first photo, please.
Button 1, button 3, screenshot or windmill.
Windmill, please. Can you make that larger for me?
Maybe not.
If Robin can make, yeah, if anybody can do it, Robin can.
That was good. You had it. So the salt marsh island behind that is Stage Island. And coastal systems like Stage Island protect coastal communities, and that's really a critical point.
So what you're saying, Rick, is that grassy area behind the windmill that we're looking
That's
at.
correct.
That's called Stage Island.
And I would say that photograph's probably from the late 60s or early 70s.
Lot smaller now.
Well, we'll get there in a second, Mark, okay?
And behind that's
Year is
West
this?
Dennis
What
Beach?
year is this?
I would say late 60s or early 70s.
So when I was a kid and used to fish in Bass River.
Salt marshes have long been recognized as buffers for storm surges, wind-generated waves, sea level rise, as well as habitat for many land-based and water-based species. Dredge spoils can effectively restore these salt marshes, and it's something we need very definitely. Can you go to photograph 1, please? As you can see, it's dramatically different today from what we had 50 years ago. The island is in very, very serious condition. Just this past week, Friends of Bass River hired the Center for Coastal Studies to do a confirmation of existing conditions on Stage Island and help with preparations for permitting a project that would restore that, because it's so important. Throughout almost all of Bass River, we have salt marsh that needs restoration. But this is obviously the biggest project. It's 20.8 acres, and it will have a significant impact on the health of our communities, as I said before. So it's something that I've been speaking to Ken about for probably a year now. And you should know that the states of Rhode Island and Connecticut have very successfully had what they call thin layer restoration projects in place for 20, 25 years. I visited the project in Rhode Island this past winter to see exactly how successful this can be. And it's, as I said, it's Ken and the Barnstable County Dredge is uniquely positioned to help us with this. And I think I'll turn it over to Ken now to talk about it.
Push his mic over.
You need help, Ken?
Not yet. Okay.
Waiting. I joined Robin.
Yeah, don't tell me you're doing a crossword puzzle over there.
I'm not sure what
Quest presenter, perhaps, if there is an option to do so.
request presenter. I'm sharing.
Here in the Zoom link.
You're on Zoom?
Yeah. Well, anyway, I'll start. So, as Rick said, I am the director of the Barnstable County Dredge, and I just wanted to kind of go through a handful of slides to kind of give you some background. We have been dredging for, this is the 30th year that the program has been in existence. So it's started back in 1996, and here we are, 2026, 30 years has gone by. This year right now is the most successful season for us. And I'll kind of show you a slide on that if we get to that. But the main mission that the program has is clearing the shoals in the channel. We've done a lot of projects in Yarmouth, Bass River, Parkers River, primarily the number 1 and 2 projects that we usually work on. There was been a handful of years where there was a permitting problem or permitting delay. several years ago, where we had to go ahead and do some emergency authorization for that with the former director, and obviously now with Dave as your director of natural resources. We have a great relationship with that department. You know, they are the ones that manage all the dredge permitting, certainly with the DPW, as well as we kind of move from town to town and take our equipment with us. One of the things that I think is very important is that, you know, we are trying to look and explore different types of work that we can do. And as Rick mentioned, there's been sort of an increase recently on this marsh restoration, thin layer deposition. 2 years ago, the DEP issued some guidelines to allow for, hopefully, some permitting that would allow that to be done. Right now, it's not allowed in Massachusetts. Many other states south of here, very commonplace to restore marshes that have been, you know, eroded, as this is an example. Most of the other ones are sort of further up in the ecosystem, up in the river and more towards the headwaters. But there's a lot of examples on the Cape that have been identified, and hopefully as these next months go by, we'll be able to try to focus on where the priority projects are. But I think the most important takeaway here is that from the dredge's perspective, from the county's perspective, you know, we are ready, willing, and able. The equipment required is a very minimal adjustment. We broadcast the material onto the marsh. It's can use the exact same system except for just some modification on the other end of that. So for this application, I think the most challenging part of this is that you got some really strong currents that run alongside the island here, and that picture shows you how badly eroded it is from what it used to look like. You know, we have dredged here last year right on this western side. The currents are 3-5 knots strong as we work through this area. I think hopefully the consultants will look at some ways to kind of build up some type of revetment, because putting material on there, you know, the next set of tides will move it right back out of there again. So there has to be some way to reinforce the island to be able to accept the material. And you really can't put the muck that we'd like to be putting onto these marshes that
Calling it
finds
muck,
filthy.
is that what we're calling it? How about
Yeah,
we
that's
let's
the
call
other-
it,
that was the
call
other
it
group.
sand. Let's call it sand.
Can't use muck, but you know, it would have to be some kind of a it would have to be some kind of a mix, you know, a sandier material, not the embayment like material, which north of the bridge there is quite a bit of that, as you know. Well, it looks like we might not be getting our presentation.
Okay, I think we've got a pretty good idea what you folks are working on.
Yeah,
It sounds like the work that the Friends of Bass River is contracting with the Center for Coastal Studies will give us a better idea of what kind of project we might have. And that'll sort of lay out the dimensions. It will probably also tell us what's causing this problem, what is going on there. We know it's shrinking, it's breaking up. Are those impacts related largely to dredging, boating, pollution, or is Mother Nature and have storms had a real impact on this site? So we'll have a better idea of what's causing the problem and then what the potential remedy is.
You know, Mark, I think you're right on with those points. It's interesting, when I first discussed this project with the Center for Coastal Studies, the first word they said is, the marsh is drowning. So that's what's killing off all of it.
So this may be an impact of sea level rise, you think?
Correct, it's partially, yeah, and storm surge and boat traffic, because all those boat wakes. Last year at Children's Beach, we had 250 boats just to the west of that. And we counted over 900 boats on Bass River this year. So it's pretty significant. There are a number of contributing factors.
Wow. Now, did you mention that there was a larger study being done and by somebody else to identify other potential projects, Ken?
Well, at this Cape Coastal Conference that we attended this past month, early in the month, you know, there was this sort of a lot of interest in marsh restoration projects from the Audubon Nature Conservancy, the Webster people in Falmouth. So I think all of a sudden now we've kind of created a little bit of a following that hopefully will continue, because the material for these embayments, especially, you know, it's very costly to dredge that material and to put upland disposal or bags or whatever. So if it can be repurposed for marsh work, then, you know, you're much better off doing that.
That's great. Terrific. Yes, Liz.
Did you say though, Ken, that there's regulations against that at this point?
Yeah.
There is not a regulation in place that allows it in the state of Massachusetts. So to December of '24, the DEP issued these guidelines. And the latest update is that's all they've done is to sort of try to accept some comment to see what they should do, how it should work, et cetera. So, I think the first permit application will hopefully drive that to become something that becomes a test pilot project or something like that.
So it won't prohibit you, it may be the test pilot project.
Correct. Yeah, I think we need to find, a few candidates to go ahead and work on the permitting side of this thing to force the DEP to move this along as a provisional permit at the least.
Excellent.
Right.
Perhaps the county could be the first.
Well, and in partnership with the town of Yarmouth.
And does Dennis play a role in this too?
Absolutely.
Okay, yeah,
Technically, this island is the town of Dennis.
right,
But they are very much excited about it.
yes, okay.
This is terrific. This is good. Any questions, anybody? Commissioner Bergstrom?
Yeah, if you get any kind of concession from DEP to allow this, it's a big ask because normally when it comes to coastal processes, they don't believe in any kind of interference at all, I mean, those creeks that go up into that marsh are actually habitat. I know because I've climbed into those creeks in Chatham, and they're spawning areas for small fish and stuff like that. So, I mean, you do what's necessary, and I applaud your effort. But you're right, running the regulatory gamut and allowing this, having the state allow us to do this is the first big hurdle. And after that, the mechanics of it we can work out later. But and also asking yourself, how much of a permit or even a semi-permanent solution is this going to be? I mean, are we looking at a 5-year time where might have to do it again? I mean, have you looked into it all? It's speculation as to how long this would last if we remediated it?
I think the Center for Coastal Studies will answer some of these questions for us because that was the question that I proposed to them. Perhaps we need a living shoreline as a way to augment part of this, as a way to flex some of the activity around it.
I think as we've seen throughout the other projects that we've done, I think you have a case here where it's not a matter of if, but a matter of when this is going to become non-existent.
Right.
Right.
The town of Wellfleet used to have an island called Billingsgate that people lived on, and that is totally gone. And this is just another challenge for managers and municipalities to factor in. When you're thinking of that property out there that Anthony's used to be on, is what's the balance here and what can we protect and how much protection is that giving us for the rest of the town coming forward?
Yeah, I think this is part of a discussion that on the Board of Commissioners we've been having over and over again, and that is to what degree does the dredge program sort of cover other areas like resiliency? So when we're working in a community, are we looking at utilizing that material, not just for beach nourishment and extending a beach, but might it be more valuable as material for shoreline protection, dealing with other sort of resiliency initiatives in a community? So as Yarmouth sort of focuses on some of its resiliency options, we at least want to have more tools in our toolbox to help towns. So this is something potentially that has, I think, it's not only exciting, but I think it has potential for some additional applications in other communities as we progress. But right now, the regulatory framework isn't receptive to it, so we're going to be having to work with DEP. Yes.
I'm sorry, Ron but I just wanted to.
Just a quick question. Getting away from the entrance, what you're doing up in the watershed area is terrific by allowing the natural flow of water through previously restricted areas. Really, it cleans up some of the water and it allows the anadromous fish to move through there. And so we've done a little bit of that in my town. I know they're doing it in Wellfleet and trying to open up those areas historically closed, and it makes a big environmental benefit. So
It does, but I just wanted to leave on the note that I would like to see Cape Cod be the model for resiliency and not development, that we know how to take care of this. We are working at it, and we are a community that is collectively good stewards. So
Thank you. I want to give kudos to the Friends of
Yes,
Bass River,
yeah, you've done it
Ken,
very
and
well.
also Dave Condon, the Natural Resources Director. They've all worked together to sort of strategize on this. It's been a terrific collaboration involving the town and these other groups. So I just want to note that. I know Dave had to leave, but we do appreciate his support, his help. So thank you.
Thank you very much for inviting us in.
Thank you.
You're welcome. The last item that we have on the agenda, we're running up against time. I'm gonna suggest to my fellow commissioners that we do an incredibly abbreviated discussion of item F, which is a draft report on lottery spending in Barnstable County, and maybe just touch on it briefly as it relates to Yarmouth, because I know Carol had to leave. So
Carol
Yeah.
would have to leave, and I'll
Promise.
cut it down from 110 slides to 47 slides.
Oh, yeah.
how about a couple of quick ones?
Just do super quick. So I think, first of all, thanks to Bob and the Yarmouth staff. Really appreciate having you host us. We learn a lot. I learn a lot, as well as the commissioners, but we take that back and use it as we do the work of the county.
Just a quick point, Michael. Do you have a copy of the report?
draft letter.
Our report? Do they have a copy of the draft?
They can
We
have
want to
mine.
make sure that you have it. This has been prepared for us, but we wanted to make sure that we had copies for you, because this will tell us and showcase just how much the town of Yarmouth is getting screwed on local aid. So, I'm sorry, did I say that word? Okay, we can
Does not
bleep that out later, right?
Does not appear in the report.
Yeah.
That's mild compared to
Yeah.
what some of our officials
Yeah.
say.
So the commissioners have been very interested in helping the towns deal with the financial pressures that they're under. And this is an area that we wanted to spend a little bit of time on, because this is a problem that has persisted for quite some time. We keep hearing talk on Beacon Hill that other towns do very well with their local aid distribution. We know that we're getting underserved, but we didn't really have time to paint the picture in Yarmouth and in other communities on Cape Cod. So this is what this report's all about, painting a picture on how much the Cape is getting shortchanged on state aid.
So, thank you, Commissioner. So just to give you a very broad overview, the Massachusetts State Lottery, created in 1971. It was a funding mechanism when times were particularly tough, and the legislature was looking for ways to help municipalities avoid property tax increases. So it is funded through gaming revenue, lottery revenue. It takes a little slice out of actual gaming, casino revenues, and then combines it all and gives us unrestricted local government aid, or unrestricted general government aid, I guess it's now called. So the paradox for Cape Cod communities is that we spend collectively, all 15 towns on the Cape spend a little over $216 million in annual lottery sales. Collectively, we get back a little over $13 million in unrestricted general government aid. That's a return of about a little over 6%, which is fairly anemic, and I'll get to that in just a sec. So we see some structural bias. The lottery uses a 1991 baseline, and then uses weighted property valuations and population to determine the distribution of aid. So just very quick on the lottery law basically says that at least 45% of the revenues will be doled out as prizes. In Massachusetts, whether good or bad, a policy decision was made, and that percentage is about 70% of lottery revenues are then turned around and distributed as prize money. In terms of operations, just managing the lottery system, the law allows no more than 15% of the revenues to be used for operational expenses. And the good thing is the lottery actually uses just a little over 2% of the revenues for administration. That's pretty good. And then the remainder is set to be distributed to the towns through unrestricted government aid. I will skip that one. So just to give you an idea of the return ratio of each of the towns on the Cape, it varies from 3 point something up to one. There's a one-off And that's Truro. We do have a little more research to do to see why Truro gets 54%, but all the rest of us definitely underperforming in terms of money coming back to
Oh,
us.
okay, what it translates to.
So the Cape Cod disadvantage, as I said, 216 million going up to Boston, only about 13 million coming back to us. That's about a little over 6 cents per dollar coming back to us. And, you know, the high volume retail corridors, Barnstable and Yarmouth, together combined for 85 million, they get less than 5% return. So as I pointed out, the equalized property valuation formula is rooted back in the 1980s. It's an inverse relationship. So the higher the amount of equalized valuation, the less the formula will allow us to get back to the Cape. So the problems are there's a wealth illusion. You know, the state thinks that high property values equates to high earning, and that is not the case, as we all know. The Cape Cod year-round working population regularly reports median income that's below the state average. We've got a tourism infrastructure burden. We created infrastructure, as you well know, as you're putting in sewer mains and distribution or collection systems, that there's quite a capital investment there. The lottery calculation doesn't account for that at all. And then I pointed out before, we've got sort of a frozen bias, frozen base bias, so that the base that was established in 1991 through the Massachusetts general laws still exists without room for adjustments there. So if there's a percentage increase in distribution, it's across the board. There's no accounting for increase in population, increase in capital expenses that we all know have occurred, mostly around sewering and water infrastructure. So some of the very preliminary things that we'd like to see: a minimum floor allocation. So if a town sends up, you know, a certain amount of money, we should see a percentage of that as a floor coming back. And we think that that would be a fair distribution. We think there's room for more multivariable indexing instead of just the static population and the static values. And we think that there should be some dedicated regional infrastructure offsets, which would allow you know, towns that have heavy capital investments in infrastructure to receive a bump in their local aid distributions. Anyway, that's a rehash of what I've already talked about, and that's it. But I would like to say that you know, we're midway, as I think Robin gave out a copy of the report. We're midway through it. There's more work to be done, and, you know, with the commissioner's consent, we'd like to proceed and really drill down some more. Carol Coppola, who had to leave, was really instrumental in making sure we had the data that we could, the data needed to put together the report that we see today. But there's more to do, and we appreciate that. And the last thing I'll say, that local aid, just so folks know, local aid does not contribute at all to the county revenue stream, but it does contribute a fair amount to all 15 towns on the Cape. So with that, I will turn it back over.
Thank you. Yeah, this is a chance to get a first crack at our work on this, because we do think that it will be helpful in our advocacy to change local aid for all of our Cape communities. So the reason why this is in draft form is that we want input from managers. This will become a discussion item at your next Cape and Islands managers meeting, I'm sure. And we're interested also in any feedback, particularly as it relates to advocacy, things that we should do. There is one thing, however, that you should be aware of. We've heard from Senator Fernandez's office. Dylan Fernandez has actually been successful in getting an amendment to the Senate budget the Senate FY27 budget that has language calling for a commission to sort of redo the formula. And what he's going to be seeking our collective efforts to insist that the House have the same language. So we're going to take this up in a much greater detail at our next commissioners meeting, but we wanted to at least make you aware of what we're up to and what we're trying to do. As you can see, when you look at the report, all these Cape towns, Yarmouth is really, it generates $33 million in lottery sale revenue, but only gets back 1.5 million roughly. And that's been pretty much the trend for a while, right, Bob?
It's amazing.
And if I can add, I just want to say from a preliminary standpoint, it's a very excellent piece of work, Michael. I think you've nailed the issues that we've dealt with for generations completely. And the idea that property value is wealth, it's not. We're one of the lowest income communities in the Commonwealth. And, you know, to have that mistaken assumption that we're all wealthy down here, that is a travesty that the aid is distributed based on property value and not income. That's the most regressive form that you could possibly do. And the other thing that I just wanted to say, it's always been, I mean, we've failed repeatedly on getting the legislature to address this item. But the one thing that should have been done, and I think could much more easily be accomplished, is to just set some circuit breaker level so there is a minimum floor for the state aid, because it's really ridiculous. The last point that you might take a peek at for the final draft of the report, don't forget that the cherry sheet, right, is the old one that used to come in pink.
Right.
With the green sheet, and your state aid is actually on the green sheet, and the cherry sheet are the state charges. And when you see all of this aid distributed based on the property value not having income, we actually have a net that's about zero. And in some of the communities are negative. So there's no discount on the cherry sheet charges, yet without having the aid to support them, there are communities on Cape Cod that get zero net aid or negative net aid. And so I think, I really appreciate having this work regionally. We struggle with this every year. We can't even balance our budgets at this point in 2027 without overrides. And a big reason is the failure to distribute revenues equitably, that are based on, these collection methods that we do not have access to at the local level.
I think that's
Thanks, Bob.
well
Commissioner
said.
Yeah,
Bergstrom?
this has been an issue for as long as I can remember, is the distribution of state aid. So you have the base, let's put it down to the basic problem we have. You know all the statistics you want, but if there's a limited amount of state aid and we get more of that limited amount, that means everybody else is going to get less, okay? Which means that our delegation is going to have to convince all the other senators and representatives in the entire state to vote on something which is going to provide less income for their towns. Now, I'm not saying that they should do that. I'm saying let's talk about what the obstacle is that in what we're trying to accomplish. A minimum is a good idea. Give everybody a certain minimum. But I mean, I'm just saying, haven't I heard this argument before? Haven't I seen these statistics before? Haven't we talked about how we don't get the money back? We have. The question is, what are we going to do about it? Do we really believe that we can convince the state legislature, vast majority of them, to accept less in state aid so that we can have more? If you can do that, I'll be right there with you. Believe me, I'll pound.
Okay, well, we're gonna lead the charge, Commissioner.
Okay,
Commissioner Lyons.
I'm glad that we're going to talk about this again. I know that you'll bring it before the Municipal Association and the Managers Association. I think it would be nice if and I know it's a busy time, but maybe we could get Senator Fernandez to come and speak to us about his bill, how he sees this.
Cool.
And we'll keep you all in tuned and invited we're always on Zoom, so you'd be able to ask questions of him while we have that.
That's great. We'll get him. So thanks for this mini presentation.
Yeah, sounds like
Michael.
we're ready for bear.
Yeah, now, unless there's any other comment, what I'm going to just sort of let everybody know is this sort of ends the sort of more interesting portion of our agenda. We have
Meaning
what I
all
would
of you.
call, yeah, meaning you folks, the stuff that you're interested in, we're interested in talking to you about. The next section of our agenda deals with consent agenda items that are fairly routine commissioners' business. So you've been incredibly generous with your time. You are free to go. We will not feel insulted or feel bad in any way. And that goes for the audience as well. It's all being recorded. Yeah, or the public as well. But
If I can add, while you have the agenda, if you do look at the consent agenda, it does also, highlight money that we are able to secure and bring in. And there's a lot of things that the county does that we don't really talk about in depth. So now you have it right
But
there in your
you're
hand.
welcome to stick around. I just want to make sure that before everybody goes, we give a big shout out to the town of Yarmouth.
Yes.
And folks here at Town Hall. Bob,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Thanks, Paul Schiaffi and Lori Sullivan, the communications team. Appreciate your help in supporting us. Thank you, and appreciate all the department heads for participating in this conversation. It's wonderful to have you here with us. We've enjoyed every minute of it. And we'll be back again in another year and a half.
That long?
Yeah, it takes us
Maybe
about a
sooner.
year and it takes us about 14, 15 months to get through all of the towns every month. So,
The kingdoms.
but you always know how to find us. So thank you once again for all your help and all your support with this meeting. It's been good. It's been productive.
Have a wonderful summer.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. We're going to head on to the next item here.
Okay.
And new business, I'm going to pass over that because we don't have any new business, do we?
No.
Okay. Commissioner's consent agenda. I'm going to ask Commissioner Bergstrom to read the first motion.
Okay. I move to approve the Commissioner's consent agenda items 8A and 8B as listed on the May 27, 2026 meeting agenda.
And I will second that.
Okay.
Okay, do we have any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Commissioner Lyons, you abstain, correct?
I abstain.
Okay.
Okay.
I heard you abstain.
Yes.
Okay, I move to
My
approve.
page too
Can
quickly.
you do the next motion, Commissioner Bergstrom?
I move to approve the Commissioner's consent agenda items item 8C is listed on the May 27, 2026 meeting agenda.
And I will second.
Okay, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Commissioner Forrest abstains.
Okay.
Can you read the next one?
I move to approve Commissioner's consent agenda items 8D through 8S as listed on the May 27th, 2026 meeting agenda.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Carries unanimously. So, and if anybody in the audience or anybody in the public would like to read the items that we just deliberated on and acted on, it's right on the agenda here on the table, or it's posted on our website. We are going to go on to the next item, item 9. which is
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the May 13th, 2026 regular meeting minutes as drafted.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously. Commissioner reports. Commissioner Bergstrom?
I have nothing right now.
No, I am
Lyons?
not going to.
Okay, and I will hold off on that as well. Upcoming business, Commissioner? Yes.
Yeah, I recently was informed that the state of Massachusetts under the Healy administration was going to extend $25,000 as a down payment, as a no-interest loan, as a down payment on people who are people of certain income levels who are trying to access affordable housing. And it was a limited program, and it has a window. So I made a preliminary request from the Human Services Department to find out what information they could about it, with the idea that the county might be interested in having a similar program. I don't want to go any further in asking any more information without bringing it before the board, before I ask the already beleaguered staff to go for it. But I'm not asking you to support it. I'm just wondering if we could put it on the agenda and discuss it as a
As a future agenda item?
future agenda
Sure.
item.
No unless there's an objection, let's
No.
proceed. Thank you. Anything else? Any other? Okay, that's an upcoming business item. Any other upcoming business item?
No.
Okay, county administrator and staff reports.
Nothing right now, thank you.
Okay. And that only leaves us with,
Mr. Chair, I move that we adjourn at 12:47 PM.
Second.
any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
It carries unanimously. Thank you, everybody.
Recording
for-
stopped.
Robin, thank you for all of your help. And Ken.
Thank you for being
thank you
here.
for being here. Vera, it's always
I
good to
heard
see
you.
everybody.
I heard you.
And Harris.